Chapter 2620, Chapter 2620, Grotto Heaven Transformation, Supreme Suppression. Chapter 2620, Grotto Heaven Transformation, Supreme Suppression. That voice. The immortal kings glared at the dark void not far away with bewildered expressions. The immortals and monks around the builder tree were dumbfounded with a look of disbelief on their faces. Desolate Marshal. That was the voice of Desolate Marshal from the Fiend domain. How was that possible? Hadn't Desolate Marshal's body and essence spirit been destroyed by the combined forces of 19 supreme immortal kings? Even the void was penetrated, but Desolate Marshal was still alive? Mo Qing had a delighted expression and clenched her fists instinctively. She looked at the figure that gradually appeared in the dark void and did not dare to look away. It was as though she was afraid that the figure would disappear once more. Yunju heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Su Zimo, who was on the peak of the builder tree, with a hint of reproach. He seems to have become stronger. Jun Yu looked at the dark void and murmured softly. On the side of the Fiend domain. Feng Cantian and the others finally relaxed and smiled. Although Desolate Marshal was only the Marshal Dao prime body, if he were to die, there might be a huge commotion in Tianhuang's sect as well. On the peak of the builder tree, immortal Queen Ling Long heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Desolate Marshal was fine. However, she looked at the dark void with a confused expression. Even with her experience and knowledge, she could not see through the dermic formulation used by the Marshal Dao prime body to revive. She could only roughly determine that after this change, the Marshal Dao prime body had already created a grotto heaven that was unique to him. Beneath the builder tree, the Marshal Dao prime body wore a silver mask and walked out slowly from the dark void. He wore purple robes and looked no different from before. However, immortal King Qin Yang and the others could clearly sense that Desolate Marshal had turned even more terrifying. They could sense the aura of a grotto heaven from Desolate Marshal. Grotto heaven realm? The immortal kings frowned with grim expressions. The dark grotto heaven on Desolate Marshal's body fluctuated sinisterly, as though it was one with him and was faintly visible. How could this be? The immortal kings were puzzled and did not attack rashly out of caution. The grotto heaven conjured by Desolate Marshal seemed to be extremely different from the grotto heaven they knew. Under normal circumstances, the shattering of a cultivator's Dao fruit should happen outside of their bodies. After all, a shattered Dao fruit would release such a tremendous power that it could even penetrate the void. If it was placed in one's body, it would be enough to blow it up to ashes. One would die even before they could condense a grotto heaven. In other words, when cultivators advanced to the immortal king realm, their grotto heavens were condensed outside their bodies. Although the grotto heavens were outside their bodies, it was closely related to them. They could make use of the grotto heavens to connect to the heavens and absorb heaven and earth essence chi. However, Desolate Marshal's grotto heaven seemed to be within his body. A grotto heaven that was within his body? In reality, the grotto heaven of the Marshal Dao prime body was not outside or within his body. To be precise, the Marshal Dao prime body was the grotto heaven. The new Marshal Dao prime body was already one with this grotto heaven. The Marshal Dao prime body had reappeared in the world after transforming into a grotto heaven. In terms of the Marshal Dao, the prime body was still at the true martial realm and the level of a perfected true Marshal Dao body. However, the prime body made use of the uniqueness of the true Marshal Dao body and used another method to condense a grotto heaven first to become a fiend king. That was because his Dao body was his Dao fruit. Therefore, this was a path that no one else could replicate. Immortal King Long Night narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Desolate Marshal, you are indeed capable to be able to survive. From the looks of it, you seem to have benefited from this misfortune?" Amitba. Heavenly King Luoshan said slowly, "Since Desolate Marshal is still alive, we'll just kill him once more." That's right. With just a few words, the 19 supreme immortal kings propped up their major grotto heavens once more and charged towards the Marshal Dao prime body with an aura of aggressiveness. "You still want to kill me?" The Marshal Dao prime body looked at the 19 supreme immortal kings charging over and shook his head gently, saying indifferently, "You guys are way too naive. The moment he said that, the martial Tao prime body counterattacked as well. Without any unnecessary movements, he punched towards the incoming Heavenly King Luo Shen. Not only did that punch contain the dermic formulation of the martial Tao, it also contained the power of this new grotto, heaven. Boom! The fist of the martial Tao prime body collided with Heavenly King Luo Shen's major grotto heaven. In reality, this was also a collision between the grotto heaven of the martial Tao prime body and Heavenly King Luo Shen's major grotto heaven. The world trembled as though it was letting out a tragic cry. Both parties were caught in a stalemate in midair for a moment, and Heavenly King Luo Shen's expression changed. His major grotto heaven could not hold on any longer and faint cracks started appearing, threatening to collapse at any moment. How is that possible? Desolate Martial has only just formed a grotto heaven, so it should merely be a minor grotto heaven. Yet, my major grotto heaven is unable to defend against it? Heavenly King Luo Shen was shocked and furious. The reason why the martial Tao prime body could release such an attack was not only because of a minor grotto heaven. The reason for his terrifying might was the combination of his perfected true martial Tao body and the minor grotto heaven. Alongside his first punch, the martial Tao prime body continued releasing punches in succession. There were a total of 19 for the 19 immortal kings present. At the perfected true martial realm, the martial Tao prime body could suppress the minor grotto heaven immortal kings. Now that the martial Tao prime body had transformed into a grotto heaven and controlled the power of the grotto heaven realm, his combat strength had increased exponentially and he could completely suppress the supreme immortal kings present. The moment he transformed into the grotto heaven, the situation of the battle had changed completely. Boom! 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 A series of explosions shook the world. The void beneath the builder tree tore continuously. The grotto heavens of the 19 supreme immortal kings were shaken and shattered by the martial Tao prime body. They could not defend against it at all. How can he be so strong? The 19 supreme immortal kings were shocked. Although the supreme immortal kings surrounded the martial Tao prime body in the middle, in reality, they were already facing a situation where they could collapse at any moment. As long as one of them was afraid and chose to retreat, the other supreme immortal kings might withdraw as well. The 19 supreme immortal kings were still hesitant. Desolate Martial had just entered the grotto heaven realm after all, while they had been famous for a long time. Furthermore, it was a situation of 19 supreme immortal kings against him. It was truly not good for them to retreat just like that. While immortal King Qin Yang and the others were hesitating, the martial Tao prime body did not give them much time to think. Devour. The martial Tao prime body opened his grotto heaven and hollered softly. His figure seemed to have vanished and a gigantic and strange grotto heaven appeared in midair. It spun continuously and tore apart the 19 surrounding major grotto heavens. Against the counterattack of the martial Tao prime body, the 19 major grotto heavens were already on the verge of collapse. Now that they were affected by this tremendous suction power, they could not hold on at all and collapse completely. An endless stream of grotto heaven power was devoured by the dark grotto heaven of the martial Tao prime body. Some of the damaged grotto heaven fragments were even devoured by the dark grotto heaven of the martial Tao prime body. Ordinary grotto heavens could reach the heavens and connect to the three realms. They could absorb the essence qi in the world wildly, remove the impurities and refine them, allowing the grotto heavens to gradually grow. However, the grotto heaven of the martial Tao prime body was a variable to begin with and was already beyond the three realms. It was also difficult for this grotto heaven to grow by absorbing heaven and earth essence qi. It could only transform by devouring other grotto heavens to absorb and refine their dermic daos. Chapter 26-21, Chapter 26-21, Peerless Ferocity. Chapter 26-21, Peerless Ferocity. Immortal King Qin Yang and the others suddenly realized that the grotto heavens that they had condensed were being devoured by the dark grotto heaven that Desolate Martial had transformed into. Their major grotto heavens were being torn apart. The immortal kings were shocked. Desolate Martial's grotto heaven could devour their major grotto heavens. Throughout history, there had been countless paragons and monster incarnates. There were also some monster incarnates who cultivated unprecedented and terrifying grotto heavens that possessed devouring powers. However, even those grotto heavens could only devour the divine powers, secret skills, grotto heaven powers, divine weapons or dermic treasures of others. There had never been any immortal king who could devour the grotto heavens of other immortal kings whole like desolate Marshall. All of their grotto heavens contained the profoundness of their cultivations. It could be said that every immortal king was practically the god within their grotto heavens. Devouring the grotto heaven of the other party meant that he wanted to devour the dermic Tao contained in the grotto heaven. However, the dermic Tao in every grotto heaven was different. If one devoured another person's dermic Tao into their grotto heaven forcefully, it would mean that an intense dermic Tao conflict would break out within his grotto heaven. This was equivalent to shifting the battlefield into his grotto heaven. If he could not suppress it, his grotto heaven would explode and his cultivation would vanish into thin air before the other party even attacked. In the top auction houses and trading houses of the upper world, there would indeed be some priceless treasures such as the grotto heaven fragments of fallen immortal kings. Those grotto heaven fragments contained the dermic Taos of the fallen immortal kings. For some grotto heaven realm experts, they could make use of a long period of time to gradually digest and smelt such grotto heaven fragments to comprehend the dermic Taos without much conflict. However, the way Desolate Marshall was forcefully devouring their grotto heavens was an unprecedented and frenzied act. Furthermore, Desolate Marshall was not only devouring a single major grotto heaven of one supreme immortal king, he wanted to devour 19 major grotto heavens of 19 supreme immortal kings in one go. Aren't you afraid of biting off more than you can chew? Immortal King Long Night shouted with a furious expression. They were still alive and in their peak condition. The grotto heavens did not only contain their dermic Taos, but also their powerful wills. Desolate Marshall was way too domineering and unreasonable. Not only did he want to devour their dermic Taos, he wanted to subdue their wills as well. Heavenly King Luotian channeled his essence spirit and the major grotto heaven behind him shone with a Buddhist light that was filled with a blinding golden radiance. Since this fiend wants to die, let's fulfill his wish. The 19 supreme immortal kings channeled their blood chi and forced themselves to hold on to their major grotto heavens while continuing to exert pressure on the Martial Dao prime body. The figure of the Martial Dao prime body was faintly visible in his dark grotto heaven. He did not repel any of the 19 major grotto heavens and devoured them with all his might. If it was an ordinary grotto heaven, it would indeed not be able to devour the grotto heaven of other immortal kings directly. However, the grotto heaven of the Martial Dao prime body was a variable and was not within the three realms or restricted by the laws of this world. The grotto heaven of the Martial Dao prime body could not refine 19 major grotto heavens in a short period of time. However, his grotto heaven was like a bottomless abyss that could absorb everything. He would first absorb the dermic Taos of the 19 major grotto heavens forcefully before refining them slowly in the future. Both parties were only in a stalemate for a moment. The expressions of immortal King Qin Yang and the others turned terrible. When Desolate Marshall devoured their different dermic Taos, his dark grotto heaven did not explode. Instead, it became even more terrifying. The radius of the grotto heaven became larger and its devouring power was even stronger. Immortal King Qin Yang and the others could clearly sense the dermic Taos contained in their grotto heavens weakening alongside their strength. If this continued, their hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation might be devoured by Desolate Marshall. In fact, their major grotto heavens might even drop in cultivation realm and be relegated to become minor grotto heavens. This was a loss that they could not endure. Retreat. That thought flashed through the mind of immortal King Qin Yang. He could not let this drag on any longer. Otherwise, their major grotto heavens would be devoured cleanly before Desolate Marshall's grotto heaven even exploded. He had to leave as soon as possible while he still had the strength to break free. Desolate Marshall's dermic Tao was way too evil. The only people who could suppress him were probably peak immortal kings with perfected grotto heavens. At that thought, immortal King Qin Yang retreated and said in a deep voice, Everyone, hold on first. I'll send a message to Divine Firmament Palace. The moment the immortal King Qin Yang retreated, the other supreme immortal kings retreated before he could finish. The combined forces of the 19 supreme immortal kings dissipated instantly. The figure of the martial Tao prime body reappeared and many mysterious and terrifying dermic Taos spewed from his body, transforming into countless blinding runes that circled around him as his aura surged. His gaze was burning as he locked onto the aura of immortal King Long Night. Instantly, he closed in and punched forward, tearing through the air. The major grotto heaven of immortal King Long Night was torn into pieces by the martial Tao prime body and its aura was weak. Right now, it could not defend against this forceful punch of the martial Tao prime body at all. Bang! Boom! That punch was earth-shaking. The major grotto heaven of immortal King Long Night collapsed completely. The fist of the martial Tao prime body charged right in and broke through the major grotto heaven of immortal King Long Night. The fist still had strength left and struck the chest of immortal King Long Night. The overwhelming and terrifying power shattered the body of immortal King Long Night instantly. Blood filled the air. The immortals and monks on the peak of the Builder Tree were shocked and horrified. Immortal King Long Night was not an ordinary immortal king, but a supreme immortal king with a major grotto heaven. But now, his body was shattered by a single punch from Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain. The other 18 supreme immortal kings had wary expressions and did not dare to advance. If that was the case for the supreme immortal kings, the remaining 100-odd ordinary immortal kings were even more afraid of attacking. The Fiend Domain's Desolate Marshal had just condensed his grotto heaven, but he was already so domineering and ferocious. He suppressed the immortal kings of the two domains until they could not raise their heads and dodged him. The reason why the martial Tao prime body targeted immortal King Long Night was not because they had any deep feud. It was because the Grand Pure Jade Manual was now in the hands of immortal King Long Night. As a supreme immortal king, immortal King Long Night had expected that his body and bloodline would not be able to withstand the punch of the martial Tao prime body. The moment the fist of the martial Tao prime body descended, his essence spirit attached itself to the Grand Pure Jade Manual and fled into the distance with a ball of essence blood. Indeed, his body was shattered by a single punch from the martial Tao prime body. The tremendous power charged towards his essence spirit and essence blood. However, it was dissipated by the power of the seal on the Grand Pure Jade Manual. Immortal King Long Night made use of the essence blood to condense his body rapidly and tear through the void, prepared to escape back to the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain. The martial Tao prime body chased relentlessly like a shadow. The moment immortal King Long Night tore through the void, the martial Tao prime body had already caught up to him. Right then, a change happened. Chapter 26-22, 26-22 Awakening of the Builder Tree. 26-22 Awakening of the Builder Tree. In the deep void torn apart by immortal King Long Night, an evil power suddenly burst forth. A ghastly green light flashed and disappeared, entering the glabella of immortal King Long Night. The attention of immortal King Long Night was entirely focused on the martial Tao prime body chasing after him. He had not expected that a fatal killing intent would be hidden in the void before him. At the same time, he had not expected that apart from Desolate Marshal, there was someone else who would dare to kill him at the Nine Firmament meet. Immortal King Long Night was in a state of panic to begin with after being hunted by the martial Tao prime body. Coupled with the fact that he was caught off guard, he was killed by the ghastly green light that suddenly flashed through the depths of the void. A supreme immortal king died on the spot. The immortal kings were shocked. Up till this point of the Nine Firmament meet, although the cultivators on the perfected immortal and Arhat rankings suffered immense losses and even the supreme Arhat was killed by Desolate Marshal, no immortal king expert died. The death of an immortal king was extremely important. Furthermore, a supreme immortal king had died. In fact, an emperor might be activated with the death of a supreme immortal king. The martial Tao prime body frowned slightly and suddenly stopped in his tracks. He felt an extremely dangerous aura from the existence hidden in the deep void. There was a high chance that this expert had already surpassed the Grotto Heaven realm and was at the Emperor realm. That was also the reason why he could kill Immortal King Long Night cleanly before disappearing rapidly. Who was this person? How long had he been here? Was it an enemy of Immortal King Long Night? Was he here for the Grand Pure Jade Manual, or were there some other reasons? What puzzled the Martial Dao Prime Body the most was that the ghastly green aura seemed familiar and made him feel extremely disgusted. Could it be the witch race? At the level of an Immortal King, it was already difficult for them to die. The fact that the intruder could kill Immortal King Long Night so cleanly was proof of how terrifying his methods were. The Martial Dao Prime Body did not continue chasing. He had completely lost track of the mysterious expert's aura. This person laid in ambush here and vanished after killing Immortal King Long Night, as though he had never appeared. His spirit perception warned him repeatedly. He could not linger here. Even without the reminder of his spirit perception, the Martial Dao Prime Body was prepared to retreat. Not far behind him, a powerful life form was awakening. The Builder Tree. Perhaps due to the commotion of the 9 firmament meet or for some other reason, the Builder Tree had already awakened in advance. Given the power of the Builder Tree, apart from emperors, all the Immortal King experts present had to avoid it. Furthermore, there was a high chance that the death of Immortal King Long Night would alarm the Immortal Emperor of the Grand Firmament Immortal Domain. Even with the current capabilities of the Martial Dao Prime Body, he could not take on an Emperor expert head-on. He had already achieved his goal of using the Supreme Immortal Kings to shatter his true Martial Dao body. There was no need for him to linger here. Hurry and leave. Return to Tianhuang's sect immediately. Before the Martial Dao Prime Body left, he sent a voice transmission to Feng Cantian using his spirit consciousness. Feng Cantian had been paying attention to the commotion the entire time and had already sensed the violent aura released by the Builder Tree. Once this ancient divine tree was awakened, it did not matter if one was from the 9 firmament immortal domain, pure land of bliss or fiend domain. Within its territory, any living being that barged in would be viewed by it as an anomaly, a provocation and threat. When Feng Cantian heard the voice transmission from the Martial Dao Prime Body, he was extremely decisive and tore through the void, bringing Yan Beichen, Ming Zhen, and the others into the spatial tunnel and disappearing. On the other side, the Builder Tree was completely awakened and released a violent life force. As though they could sense the living beings around them, thick branches danced like green anacondas. They were filled with a resplendent glow and fell into a frenzied rage. Piak! 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 A few branches swept past and whipped the crowd of more than 100 Immortal King experts. Instantly, more than 10 Immortal Kings were sent flying and their bodies exploded. An Immortal King released his Grotto Heaven, but it was shattered by a tree branch and collapsed instantly. Ordinary Immortal Kings were helpless against the Builder Tree. If that was the case for Immortal Kings, all the perfected immortals and arhats present would have to die once all the branches of the Builder Tree started flailing. Retreat! Immortal King Qin Yang let out a long howl. Even with his capabilities, he could not care about too many people. He could only bring the 3 great fairies and the other perfected immortal paragons of the divine firmament immortal domain who were closest to him to break through the void, prepared to escape back to the divine firmament immortal domain. As for the thousands of perfected immortals of the divine firmament immortal domain on the peak of the Builder Tree, he could not care less about them. Immortal Queen Ling Long was on the peak of the Builder Tree the entire time and did not descend. At that moment, she brought Lin Lei and Lin Luo with her and shifted her gaze towards Su Zimo. She sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Don't worry, I'll take you out of here first. All the Immortal Kings could not care less and could only bring along the perfected immortals and arhats around them. They shattered the void one after another, prepared to escape from this place. However, right then, a gigantic green halo burst forth from the body of the Builder Tree and spread rapidly, enveloping the surrounding 50 kilometers. The voids that were broken by the Immortal Kings were repaired instantly under the envelopment of the green halo, and the spatial tunnels vanished as well. The voids healed and the spatial tunnels were gone, leaving the cultivators of the 2 domains stranded. Pust! The immortal kings gasped and were secretly alarmed. What was this builder tree trying to do? Was this divine tree trying to keep them all here and start a massacre? Initially, the martial Tao prime body could have left right away. However, he suddenly paused when he saw the green halo emitted by the builder tree. Unlike the panic and fear of others, the martial Tao prime body looked at the green halo and seemed to have thought of something. Purple flames danced in his eyes as he pondered. Piak! A tree branch was flung down and tore through the void wildly, smashing onto the builder tree mountain range, causing the entire mountain range to collapse. Dozens of perfected immortals and arhats on the mountain range who could not dodge in time were whipped to death by the builder tree's branch. Their essence, spirits and souls were destroyed. As for the thousands of thick branches on the builder tree, they were already raised and could descend at any moment. At that time, even the entire builder tree mountain range might be destroyed, let alone the many perfected immortals and arhats present. Most likely, only the immortal king experts could escape from the attack range of the builder tree with the help of their movement techniques. Everyone else was going to die here. The paragons and monster incarnates of the two domains were gathered at the 9 firmament meet this time round. If the perfected immortals and arhats of the two domains were to die here, it would cause irreparable losses for the 9 firmament immortal domain and pure land of bliss. The current situation had already spiraled out of hand and was beyond the control of the immortal kings. Now that the builder tree had awakened in advance, all the immortal kings only wanted to protect themselves and escape from this place. None of them could care about the martial Tao prime body anymore. Right then, an unstoppable might came from the direction of the 9 firmament immortal domain and enveloped the builder tree. On the other side, in the direction of the pure land of bliss, a resplendent and divine golden light passed through the layers of clouds and tore through the firmaments, scattering down and dissipating the green halo around the builder tree. Chapter 26-23, 2623 Appearance of Emperors. 2623 Appearance of Emperors. In the direction of the 9 firmament immortal domain, a figure with a terrifying aura appeared slowly. It seemed to be looking down on the world and was unparalleled, emitting an endless might. Against such a majestic might, even the immortal kings and heavenly kings present could not defend against it, let alone the perfected immortals and arhats. An immortal emperor had appeared. Su Zimo focused his gaze. The facial features of this immortal emperor were similar to Prince Qin Su. If he was not wrong, this should be Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament stood in midair and his tremendous might faced the builder tree from afar, blocking the thousands of branches temporarily, as though he was communicating with something. However, the builder tree had already fallen into a berserk state and did not give Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament any face at all, releasing an even more terrifying might. The thousands of branches of the builder tree broke free from the control of Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament instantly and enveloped in the direction of the builder tree mountain range. The builder tree's thousands of thick branches were lush and covered the skies. A large shadow enveloped down in a suffocating manner. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament's expression was terrible. Even with his combat strength, he could not fight against the enraged builder tree. In a flash, Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament made a decision. Waving his robes, he protected the cultivators of the Grand Firmament immortal domain and retreated into the distance. Given his strength, if he chose to protect all the cultivators from the 9 firmament immortal domain and pure land of bliss at the peak of the builder tree, he would definitely be severely injured by the builder tree as well. As an immortal emperor in charge of an entire immortal domain, there was no way he would take that risk. It was already extremely benevolent of him to protect the immortals of the Grand Firmament immortal domain. When the other cultivators of the two domains saw that, they quickly realized the intentions of Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament. All of them had been heartlessly abandoned. The immortals and monks were indignant. However, although they harbored resentment, they did not dare to offend Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament in any way. Furthermore, they would not get the chance either. The attack of the builder tree had already descended and cultivators of the two domains on the peak of the builder tree were about to die on the spot. Right then, the blinding golden light in the direction of the pure land of bliss shifted rapidly and shone on the immortals and monks on the peak of the builder tree through the gaps in the leaves. Everyone seemed to be covered in a layer of sacred gold foil that shone brightly. Bang! Boom! Thousands of branches smashed down with a series of deafening bangs. The builder tree mountain range beneath everyone had already collapsed completely. However, the immortals and monks were shrouded by a layer of divine golden light that blocked most of the damage released by the builder tree. Unknowingly, a middle-aged monk was shielding everyone from the builder tree alone, protecting all of them. An emperor of the Buddhist monasteries had descended. Compared to the builder tree, the middle-aged monk seemed incomparably tiny. His body was not even as thick as a branch of the builder tree. However, at that moment, to everyone, the back view of the middle-aged monk seemed extremely tall and mighty. It was especially so when they compared him to immortal Emperor Grand Firmament. The difference was obvious. Patrons, hurry and retreat. I won't be able to hold on for much longer. The middle-aged monk's body swayed slightly and his voice turned hoarse, as though he had suffered quite a blow. The immortals and monks seemed to have woken up from a dream as they hurriedly circulated their movement techniques and fled into the distance. The golden light of the middle-aged monk destroyed the green halo released by the builder tree previously. This meant that the immortal king experts could tear through the void and leave this place at any moment. When the martial Tao prime body saw the two emperors appear, he did not dare to hesitate and tore through the void hurriedly, entering a spatial tunnel. Thereafter, he summoned the hell suppression tripod rapidly and guarded it behind him before glancing in the direction of the middle-aged monk. As an emperor expert, there was naturally a chance that the middle-aged monk might attack him. The reason why he summoned the hell suppression tripod was to prevent any accidents. For some unknown reason, perhaps because the middle-aged monk was too busy facing the builder tree or because he was injured and was unwilling to bother about the martial Tao prime body. In any case, from the moment the martial Tao prime body tore through the void to the moment he left this place, the middle-aged monk did not attack him. However, the moment the martial Tao prime body turned back and looked at the middle-aged monk, he realized that the latter was looking at him as well. Their eyes met. For some unknown reason, the martial Tao prime body suddenly felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. The middle-aged monk had handsome features and a benevolent expression that left a favorable impression. However, the martial Tao prime body was certain that he had never seen this person before. How could that be? Where did that sense of familiarity come from? The martial Tao prime body was not the only one, the green lotus true body was also reminiscing. Su Zimo believed that the sense of familiarity that flashed through the martial Tao prime body's mind earlier on was definitely not without reason. The cultivators of the Nine Firmament Immortal Domain and Pure Land of Bliss made use of the time bought by the middle-aged monk to finally escape from the attack range of the builder tree. The cultivators had pale expressions as they looked in the direction of the builder tree with lingering fear. If not for the appearance of the emperor of the Buddhist monasteries, everyone present would have been buried at the peak of the builder tree beneath the rubble. As expected of someone from the Buddhist monasteries. He's compassionate and sacrificed himself to save others. He's truly on a different level from us, impressive. That's right. This accomplished monk saved all of us. We shall definitely remember this life-saving grace and repay him till our deaths. I wonder who this emperor of the Buddhist monasteries is. What's his dharmic title? After escaping, many cultivators looked at the middle-aged monk in the distance and could not help but discuss softly. Zen Master Huiwen pondered for a moment and said thoughtfully, "This senior looks like Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma." After the middle-aged monk appeared, his back was facing the immortals and monks and no one could see him clearly. Before long, the middle-aged monk escaped unscathed from the builder tree and arrived here. Everyone could clearly see that the kasaya on the middle-aged monk's chest was stained with blood. It was clear that he was injured after fighting against the builder tree. It's truly Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma. Zen Master Huiwen's heart skipped a beat when he saw the middle-aged monk. Delighted, he hurried forward and clasped his palms together, bowing. "Greetings, Senior 6 Brahma." He was not the only one. A few other heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries recognized the middle-aged monk and hurried forward to greet him as well. They were surprised and delighted with deep respect in their eyes. When the other monks saw that, they no longer had any doubts and knelt down hurriedly with elated expressions, chanting the name of Heavenly Lord Six Brahma. Heavenly Lord Six Brahma. Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled a piece of information that Lu Ping had told him back in Heaven and Earth Academy. It was said that after Emperor Bo Sun appeared and killed a few heavenly kings in succession, he disappeared and only Heavenly King Six Brahma survived. Heavenly King Six Brahma was enlightened after the calamity. He advanced courageously in Buddhism and became an emperor, now known as Heavenly Lord Six Brahma. This accomplished monk even opened a forum in the Buddhist monasteries to preach sutras and spread Dharmic Tao widely. He attracted countless Buddhist monks and had a huge impact in recent years. Su Zimo frowned and fell into deep thought. It was a nagging feeling, as though he had neglected something. Chapter 26-24, 26-24 Bo Sun's Ambition. 26-24 Bo Sun's Ambition. At that moment, Su Zimo was not standing with the cultivators of the divine firmament immortal domain. Instead, he was standing beside immortal Queen Ling Long. Immortal Queen Ling Long did not notice Su Zimo's abnormality. Instead, she looked in the direction of Heavenly Lord Six Brahma and lamented, as expected of an accomplished monk from the Buddhist monasteries of the Pure Land of Bliss. It's admirable that he can be so magnanimous. That's right. At the side, Lin Luo whispered as well, compared to this accomplished monk, Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament is far inferior. It's not merely in terms of their levels as human beings. The cultivation realm of Heavenly Lord Six Brahma seems to be above Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament as well. Immortal Queen Ling Long pondered for a moment. Yes. I heard that this senior has just entered the Emperor realm not long ago. The fact that he's able to cultivate to this point is admirable indeed. Su Zimo was in deep thought and tried his best to recall. When he heard the words of Immortal Queen Ling Long, a thought flashed through his mind. Pust. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he gasped. He finally recalled why the martial Tao prime body felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when he saw Heavenly Lord Six Brahma. It was because the martial Tao prime body had experienced that familiarity from Emperor Bo Sun before. Initially, Su Zimo had not connected Emperor Bo Sun to Heavenly Lord Six Brahma of the Pure Land of Bliss. However, at that moment, when he recalled the information Lu Ping told him and what Immortal Queen Ling Long had just said, everything seemed to make sense. Back when Emperor Bo Sun appeared, the heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries that surrounded him died, including the true Heavenly King Six Brahma. The reason why Heavenly King Six Brahma did not die was because the Heavenly King Six Brahma that appeared later on was transformed by Emperor Bo Sun. Others might not have the ability, but Emperor Bo Sun cultivated both the Buddhism and Fiend Taoist. Many years ago, he had already achieved extremely deep attainments in Buddhism. Now that he had broken free from Avicii, his comprehension of Buddhism had probably reached an unimaginable realm. If Emperor Bo Sun were to transform into a Buddha, apart from a great emperor, there was probably no one else who could see through him. That could also explain why Emperor Bo Sun seemed to have vanished from the world after he appeared and there was no news of him in the Fiend domain. That was because Emperor Bo Sun was not in the Fiend domain at all. He had long transformed into Heavenly King Six Brahma of the Buddhist monasteries and cultivated openly in the Pure Land of Bliss. Gaining enlightenment after his life and death experience was naturally just a facade. Emperor Bo Sun was an expert among emperors to begin with. All he had to do was suppress and conceal his original cultivation realm before revealing it slowly. In the eyes of others, it was because he gained a blessing in disguise to become an emperor. Emperor Bo Sun's true combat strength was definitely far above Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament, so he could naturally defend against the attacks of the Builder Tree. In fact, Su Zimo suspected that the struggle demonstrated by Heavenly Lord Six Brahma earlier on as well as the bloodstains on his chest were merely intentional acts of Emperor Bo Sun. That was the only way he could subdue the hearts of others. In reality, the effect of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma's performance earlier on was indeed not bad. It was not just the monks of the Pure Land of Bliss. The cultivators on the side of the 9 firmament immortal domain were in awe of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma as well. Even immortal Queen Ling Long praised Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma endlessly. Su Zimo had a grim expression. If his deduction was not wrong and Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma was Emperor Bo Sun, the fact that Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma was opening a forum in the Buddhist monasteries to preach sutras and spread Dharmic Tao was enough to send shivers down one's spine. Back then, Emperor Bo Sun had already unified the fiend domain. He was surrounded and killed by emperor experts of the 2 domains when he tried to conquer the Pure Land of Bliss. Now that he had reappeared, he hid his identity and transformed into a Buddha. There was a high chance that he was after the entire Pure Land of Bliss. If the influence of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma in the Pure Land of Bliss grew and eventually reached its peak, he would have countless believers and monks under his lead. Bo Sun's ambitions were frightening. In that case, there was a high chance that the Pure Land of Bliss would turn into a second fiend domain. Once cultivators fell into blind faith and worship, they would no longer possess rationality. The difference of whether they were Buddhas or fiends would lie on a single thought. At that time, there was a high chance that the Pure Land of Bliss would fall into an endless massacre and blood would flow like rivers. Su Zimo did not dare to continue thinking. Zimo, what's wrong? Right then, immortal Queen Ling Long seemed to have noticed something amiss with Su Zimo and turned around, asking softly. Senior, you have to be careful. Just as Su Zimo was about to reveal the identity of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma to immortal Queen Ling Long, he felt a searing gaze. Instinctively, Su Zimo looked over and met with the eyes of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma. Those eyes were filled with benevolence and wisdom. However, at that moment, there was a strange look in his eyes when he looked at Su Zimo. Pust. Su Zimo shuddered and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. His hairs stood on end and his scalp prickled. That gaze. Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma seemed to have already sensed something, and that gaze was a warning for him to watch his words. Given Emperor Bo Sun's capabilities, nobody could save Su Zimo if Emperor Bo Sun wanted to kill him right now. Are you alright? Noticing the change in Su Zimo's expression, immortal Queen Ling Long frowned slightly. She followed Su Zimo's gaze and looked at Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma, who was not far away. At that moment, Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma had already shifted his gaze elsewhere, as though he had not looked at Su Zimo the entire time. Su Zimo's body stiffened and he lowered his head slowly. Upon hearing immortal Queen Ling Long's question, Su Zimo was silent for a moment before shaking his head. It's nothing much. Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma's gaze earlier on had 2 layers of meaning to it. First, it was to threaten him. Second, it was to remind him not to watch his words. Su Zimo was worried that if he revealed the true identity of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma to immortal Queen Ling Long, he would bring upon death for her and the human monarch. Although Su Zimo did not say anything, his abnormality earlier on still attracted the attention of immortal Queen Ling Long. Her gaze inadvertently lingered on Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma. Actually, from the beginning, she had already felt that something was amiss. Why would the cultivation realm of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma rise so quickly? However, those were merely passing thoughts in her mind. She did not think too much about them. Coupled with Su Zimo's reaction earlier on, although immortal Queen Ling Long did not notice anything unusual about Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma, she made it a point to be cautious. At that moment, Su Zimo lowered his head slightly with a dark gaze and remained silent. There was something that he could not understand. Logically speaking, Emperor Bo Sun had only met the martial Tao prime body once. Today was the first time the Green Lotus true body was meeting Emperor Bo Sun in his Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma form as well. How did Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma know that he was the martial Tao prime body? That was the only possibility why Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma noticed him right away and warned him with that gaze. Emperor Bo Sun once pushed the martial Tao prime body into Greater Avicii. Why did he not attack the martial Tao prime body earlier on and allowed the latter to leave? Chapter 26-25, 26-25 Think at length. 26-25 Think at length. Su Zimo had no intention of revealing the true identity of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma for the time being. On the one hand, it was the warning from Emperor Bo Sun. More importantly, it was not only in the pure land of bliss. After this incident, Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma had also gained an extremely positive reputation in the hearts of the 9 firmament immortal domain immortals. If Su Zimo were to stand out and tell the truth that Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma was Emperor Bo Sun, there would only be a single outcome for him. He would be treated as a lunatic with ulterior motives. In fact, countless people would suspect his motives and suspect that he was a spy from the fiend domain who was here to slander Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma and sow discord between the 2 domains. Even without Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma making a move personally, countless fanatic believers would stand out and tear him into pieces. Who would suspect a benevolent emperor of the Buddhist monasteries who sacrificed himself for others over the words of a grade 9 heaven immortal like him? Looking at the benevolent Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma who was surrounded by many immortals and monks, Su Zimo felt a chill in his heart. The situation in the heavenly world was getting more chaotic and no one knew what would happen in the future. Of course, what made Su Zimo feel relieved was that Emperor Bo Sun was not without opponents. In this generation, Emperor Bo Sun was not the only one who had appeared. A fiend emperor that was even older than him had reappeared and was now presiding over the fiend domain. Even if Emperor Bo Sun could wreak havoc in the pure land of bliss, he could only occupy that domain at most. If he wanted to regain control of the fiend domain, he would definitely have to go against Fiend Emperor Apocalypse. At that time, there would definitely be a battle between the 2 fiend emperors. It would naturally be for the best if it was an internecine outcome. Even if one party was defeated, the other party would probably suffer immense losses. This might be an excellent opportunity for the 9 firmament immortal domain. At that time, the 9 firmament immortal domain could even accumulate strength to suppress the remaining fiend emperor and calm the chaos. Who was that earlier on? Right then, a furious shout sounded and a tremendous might enveloped the immortals and monks of the 2 domains, causing their hearts to tremble. This was the wrath of an emperor. Su Zimo looked in the direction of the voice and saw Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament surveying his surroundings. His gaze swept past Immortal King Qin Yang and the others as he asked coldly, "Long Night died and so did Qin Su, but you guys saw no one? Are all of you blind?" Immortal King Qin Yang and the others lowered their heads and did not dare to utter a thing. Although all of them were revered as immortal kings and many of them were supreme immortal kings, they had to bow down obediently in front of an immortal emperor. They did not even dare to refute the immortal emperor's scolding. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Prince Qin Su was dead as well. Although Qin Su was severely injured by the martial Dao prime body and his body was destroyed, there was still an essence spirit carried and protected by immortal King Long Night. To think that the mysterious expert hidden in the deep void had not only killed immortal King Long Night, but also the emperor's son, Qin Su. Initially, Su Zimo thought that Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament was alarmed due to the death of a supreme immortal king. From the looks of it, Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament probably only chose to come out of seclusion because he loved his son so much. Of course, there was another reason. That mysterious expert should have taken away the Grand Pure Jade Manual while killing Immortal King Long Night and Prince Qin Su. Which of you has the Grand Pure Jade Manual? Right then, Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament glared at Immortal King Qin Yang and the others and asked coldly with a sinister tone. Immortal King Qin Yang and the others were alarmed and shook their heads hurriedly. This was no small matter and they did not dare to be perfunctory. Immortal King Qin Yang said in a deep voice, "Immortal Emperor, Qin Su was first severely injured by desolate martial of the fiend domain and his body was destroyed. Only his essence spirit managed to escape with the Grand Pure Jade Manual. Fellow Taoist Long Night carried Qin Su's essence spirit and the Grand Pure Jade Manual with him in order to protect the latter. Now that fellow Taoist Long Night and Qin Su are dead, the Grand Pure Jade Manual should have been snatched away by that mysterious person." Immortal King Qi Ping hesitated for a moment. "Immortal Emperor, I noticed that the methods released by that mysterious person were a little similar to. He wanted to continue but paused. Speak. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament hollered. They resemble the methods of the witch race. Immortal King Qi Ping said. Immortal King Qin Yang nodded slightly as well. At that time, a ghastly green light indeed flashed in the depths of the void and entered the glabella of fellow Taoist Long Night, killing him. The witch race. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament frowned slightly with a dark expression. If this matter involved experts outside the heavenly world, it would be difficult to deal with. Could he possibly rush over to the witch world to demand for the culprit with just a few words from Immortal King Qin Yang and the others? Even if it was truly done by an expert of the witch race, there was no way the culprit would confess to it foolishly. The greatest possibility was that this matter would be left unresolved. At that thought, Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament felt frustrated. He merely felt pity for the death of Immortal King Long Night. However, Qin Su's premature death and the loss of the Grand Pure Jade Manual enraged him. Immortal King Qin Yang and the others could tell the likely outcome of this matter as well. As such, they could naturally guess the frustration and resentment in the heart of Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament right now. Zen Master Huiwen could not help but say, in my opinion, the culpability of this matter lies on Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain. The Supreme Arhat of the Pure Land of Bliss, Shi Wunyan, was killed by the Martial Tao Prime Body. Naturally, the monks of the Buddhist monasteries hated the Martial Tao Prime Body to the core. Since nothing could be done to the witch world, they might as well redirect the anger of Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament onto Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain. Zen Master Huiwen said, if Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain hadn't come over to wreak havoc in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and severely injured young friend Qin Su before chasing after fellow Taoist Long Night, the two of them wouldn't have been ambushed and died. Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament narrowed his eyes slightly and murmured. A moment later, he said, Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain has the Hell Suppression Tripod and is already hiding in Avicii. Even with my capabilities, I can't do anything to him. Zen Master Huiwen said hurriedly, although Desolate Marshal is hiding, his Tianhuang sect is still in the Fiend Domain. Why don't? Zen Master Huiwen's meaning was clear. He wanted to get Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament to destroy Tianhuang's sect of the Fiend Domain. However, he was interrupted by a Buddhist proclamation before he could finish. Amitabha. Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma shook his head gently and looked at Zen Master Huiwen with a burning gaze. He said slowly, Huiwen, your killing intent is too strong. If you don't wake up in time, you might be in danger of turning into a fiend. Zen Master Huiwen shuddered. The gaze of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma looked wise, as though it could read his thoughts and intentions. All his thoughts seemed to be exposed under the gaze of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma. Zen Master Huiwen was sweating profusely from the gaze of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma. He lowered his head hurriedly and said, Thank you for your warning, Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma. I understand my mistake now. Excellent. Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma nodded slightly. You have to remember that the difference between becoming a Buddha or a fiend lies within a single thought. Always guard your heart and make sure you don't fall into the fiend Tao. Zen Master Huiwen agreed repeatedly. Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma turned to look at Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament and nodded slightly. Patron, please calm down and listen to me. Although Desolate Marshal of the Fiend Domain is hiding in Avicii, we don't know if Emperor Bo Sun is hiding in Tianhuang sect. Furthermore, Fiend Emperor Apocalypse is presiding over the Fiend Domain. Patron, if you were to head to the Fiend Domain and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse notices you, it'll be difficult for you to escape unscathed. We still have to think about this matter at length. Chapter 26-26, 26-26 Arriving at the Battle Kingdom. 26-26 Arriving at the Battle Kingdom. You're right, fellow Taoist. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament nodded slightly and replied. In reality, even without the persuasion of Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma, he could not have rushed to the Fiend domain to destroy Tianhuang's sect just to vent his anger. Tianhuang's sect definitely had backing to be able to stand strong in the Fiend domain for so many years. Ever since Fiend Emperor Apocalypse appeared, he swept through the Fiend domain and conquered endlessly. However, he did not touch Tianhuang's sect. That was a little interesting. Of course, it could be explained that Tianhuang's sect was located at the borders of the Fiend domain and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse did not fancy it. However, there was another possibility. Perhaps there was some faction or person backing Tianhuang's sect that made Fiend Emperor Apocalypse feel wary. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament had lived for millions of years and was 10 times older than Zen Master Hui Wen and the other immortal kings. What had he not seen before? How could he not understand that Zen Master Hui Wen was trying to kill with a borrowed knife? Since Heavenly Lord Six Brahma also stood in to persuade him, he did not insist and went along with the flow. To think that there were also traces of people from the witch world in today's incident. Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament's gaze was dark. Although he could not attack the witch world because of this, he was still prepared to head to the witch world to see if he could find any clues. At that thought, Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament cupped his fists towards Heavenly Lord Six Brahma before turning to leave. He tore through the void and vanished. Everyone, please disperse. Heavenly Lord Six Brahma looked at the immortals and monks of the 2 domains and said with a smile. In the eyes of everyone, although Heavenly Lord Six Brahma was an emperor, he did not have the arrogance of one and was very approachable. He was unlike Immortal Emperor Grand Firmament who had a condescending attitude the entire time. The cultivators expressed their thanks once more. Heavenly Lord Six Brahma nodded slightly. Before leaving, his gaze seemed to brush past Su Zimo's face inadvertently before turning to leave, disappearing at the end of the firmaments. After the 2 emperors left, the immortals and monks present heaved a sigh of relief. In the face of the 2 emperors, even immortal king experts would feel an ubiquitous pressure. This was the might unique to emperor experts. The might of an emperor was not to be offended. One could only be considered as the peak existence of the upper world after cultivating to the emperor realm. They looked down on the world and ruled over millions of living beings. Initially, the cultivators of the 2 domains were delighted to be able to escape. However, before long, the joy in everyone's hearts faded and they had conflicted expressions. The 9 firmament meet held by the 2 domains this time round was a complete failure. Initially, the 9 firmament meet was meant to select the Supreme Perfected Immortal and Supreme Arhat of the Perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings. To think that the 2 ranking lists would end up benefiting someone else. The so-called Supreme Perfected Immortal and Supreme Arhat became stepping stones for someone else's notoriety, Desolate Marshal of the Fiend domain. Shi Wunyan had just become the Supreme Arhat when he was killed by a single punch from Desolate Marshal. For people such as Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Zither Immortal Meng Yao of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, they met with extremely tragic fates as well. Not only did Meng Yao lose to the Zither Fiend of Tianhuang's sect in the Zither Dao, her appearance was even destroyed and could never be repaired. It could be said that Meng Yao had lost everything she once had at this 9 firmament meet. Her glory, her Zither Dao, her appearance and everything that made her proud were trampled beneath the feet of Desolate Marshal of the Fiend domain. As though she had lost her soul, Meng Yao had a lost expression and hollow eyes as she followed the crowd of Mountain Sea immortal sect like a walking corpse. There was no longer anybody surrounding her as the center of attention. In fact, many fellow sect mates of Mountain Sea immortal sect revealed looks of disgust and they saw the menacing scar on her face and hid far away instinctively. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's outcome was even worse. He was struck by countless remnants of eternal damnation. Even if he could survive, it would be a fate worse than death. At the 9 firmament meet, the cultivators of the 2 domains were initially high-spirited. The paragons and monster incarnates of the Perfected Immortal and Arhat rankings were even more vigorous. To think that such a beautiful scene would be shattered by someone in the blink of an eye. At that moment, the cultivators of the 2 domains were a little despondent. They were not the only ones, even the Immortal King experts present felt bitter. In fact, Immortal King Qin Yang and the others did not even want to recall the scene earlier on. The immortals and monks of the two domains, more than 20 supreme immortal kings and more than 100 ordinary immortal kings were defeated by desolate Marshall alone. Among the cultivators of the two domains, a few of them had different moods compared to others. Yunju had a relaxed expression. Mo Qing lowered her head slightly and seemed to have thought of something with a faint smile. Why didn't someone as decisive to kill as desolate Marshall kill me? I've already comprehended level 8 of the 9 palace subtle steps. How did he dispel it instantly? Jun Yu's eyes were still filled with confusion. Lin Lei could not help but lament, to think that desolate Marshall would be stronger than he was in Langfeng City in just 2,000 years and have grown to such an extent. Prior to this, Lin Lei had a sliver of hope that he would be able to challenge desolate Marshall one day. However, after today, that thought no longer crossed his mind. If you're in no hurry to return to the academy, why don't you head over to my place to rest? Immortal Queen Ling Long sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo. I happen to have something I want to talk to you about. All right. Su Zimo agreed hurriedly. I can pay a visit to Senior Human Monarch too. Su Zimo informed Mo Qing before following Immortal Queen Ling Long and the others to teleport back to the Battle Kingdom of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain. After arriving at the Battle Kingdom, Immortal Queen Ling Long dispersed some of the cultivators of the Battle Kingdom before returning to the palace with Lin Lei, Lin Luo, and Su Zimo. The two of you should head back and rest first. Immortal Queen Ling Long said to Lin Lei and Lin Luo. Mother, Lin Luo, and I have yet to greet father? Lin Lei frowned and glanced at Su Zimo at the side, muttering internally. Why was his mother so polite to Su Zimo? There's no need for that today. You guys can rest first and come back tomorrow. Immortal Queen Ling Long sent Lin Lei and Lin Luo away first before saying to Su Zimo, thank you for saving Lair and Luoer previously. Only when he saw that there was no one else around, Su Zimo asked, right, how are Senior Human Monarch's injuries? Immortal Queen Ling Long hesitated for a moment before shaking her head gently and sighing. Indeed, it had not worked. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Back when he gave Lin Luo the Soraka fruit, he had also vaguely guessed that the Soraka fruit and 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir alone might not be able to heal the human monarch's injuries. That's also the reason why you led the group personally this time round, right? Su Zimo continued. Immortal Queen Ling Long nodded. If I hadn't appeared this time round and stayed in the Battle Kingdom, others would definitely know that the Battle King's injuries have yet to recover. My appearance at the 9 Firmament meet this time round can at least negate the suspicions of many factions. Chapter 26-27, 26-27 Entering Greater Avicii once more. 26-27 Entering Greater Avicii once more. Before long, Immortal Queen Ling Long brought Su Zimo to a chamber. The chamber was filled with an immortal fog and a strong medicinal scent. Through the thick fog, one could vaguely see a figure sitting in a lotus position on the bed, cultivating. Although they had not seen each other for many years, Su Zimo recognized human monarch Lin Zhan right away. Compared to when he was in Tianhuang mainland, the human monarch did not look much different. However, unlike the peerless glory and sharpness he possessed in the battle in Tianhuang mainland, the human monarch at that moment looked like an ordinary middle-aged man. Lin Zhan closed his eyes and frowned slightly, as though he had fallen into a critical juncture that could not be resolved. Su Zimo did not disturb him and merely waved it off to Immortal Queen Ling Long. Immortal Queen Ling Long nodded somewhat apologetically and guided Su Zimo to the other side to rest. Avicii. The martial Tao prime body was domineering and invincible at the 9 Firmament meet. He was able to condense a grotto heaven and suppress the immortals and monks of the two domains before escaping unscathed. It was practically a perfect situation. However, at that moment, beneath the Mara mask, the expression of the martial Tao prime body was a little grim. He recalled something. Earlier on, when he broke through beneath the builder tree and condensed his grotto heaven, he suddenly sensed tremendous danger. At that time, no one on the battlefield could threaten him. The sense of danger came without any warning and disappeared rapidly. Even with his spirit perception, he could not determine the origin. At that time, he was surrounded by 19 supreme immortal kings and did not think too much about it. Now that he recalled the fleeting sense of danger after calming down, the martial Tao prime body felt a vague sense of uneasiness. Did it originate from the mysterious expert that hid in the void and killed immortal King Long Night? Or did it come from Heavenly Lord 6 Brahma who descended later on? Or was it some other powerful existence that he could not predict? The feeling was way too terrifying. It was no exaggeration to say that this was the first time he had felt such a strong sense of danger since the birth of the martial Tao prime body. Even when he faced Fiend Emperor Apocalypse back then, he had never felt such a strong feeling. The martial Tao prime body pondered in Avicii for a long time without any clues. Under the Builder Tree, his combat strength increased exponentially after transforming into a grotto heaven. Right now, the martial Tao prime body was already interested in heading to the great wilderness. Back then, before Dayu mended the heavens, she noticed a sentence he wrote at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley and praised, "What boldness! You're comparable to me. I'll wait for you in the upper world. I hope that you can break through the mountains and rivers of the upper world and meet me again." Those were the final words left for him by Dayu. And now, the martial Tao prime body had cultivated to this point. In terms of his martial Tao realm, he was not a king yet. However, he made use of the variable true martial Tao body to condense a grotto heaven, allowing him to gain control of the grotto heaven realm first through another pathway. Given his current strength, although he was not at the point where he could break through the mountains and rivers of the upper world, he was already qualified to head to the great wilderness to look for Dayu. However, the martial Tao prime body was in no hurry to move. He still had many questions about Avicii and wanted to find an answer. All these years, he had often cultivated in seclusion in Avicii. He possessed the hell suppression tripod. Apart from Greater Avicii, he could roam freely in the various lesser hells and was long familiar with every single corner of this place. However, the martial Tao prime body could not understand why Great Emperor Infinite created Avicii back then. Was it to suppress the fiends? Indeed, there were many powerful living beings buried in Avicii. However, none of them worthy of this much attention from Great Emperor Infinite. The true core of the infinite hell was Greater Avicii in the depths. Legend has it that Greater Avicii was transformed from the flesh of Great Emperor Infinite. What sort of opponent would cause Great Emperor Infinite to come this far and even sacrifice himself to create a hell with his own flesh to suppress? What happened back then? Did this have anything to do with the legendary Fiend Lord who wreaked havoc in the Trichiliocosm? All sorts of questions lingered in the mind of the martial Tao prime body. Before heading to the great wilderness, he was prepared to explore the core and depths of the infinite hell, Greater Avicii. All the answers might be in Greater Avicii. Back then, he was thrown into Greater Avicii by Emperor Bo Sun and was trapped within, tortured. If not for the arrival of the Green Lotus true body, the martial Tao prime body would never have been able to escape. Now, he controlled the hell suppression tripod and could into a grotto heaven. His combat strength was sufficient to suppress supreme immortal kings. That was enough for him to explore Greater Avicii again. Apart from the hell suppression tripod, he carried the soul lantern with him. Furthermore, in the tomb of Great Emperor Heaven Burial, the soul lantern burned many ghost immortals and the oil was long filled. Once ignited, it could sustain him for a long time. Even if he encountered any danger in Greater Avicii, he could retreat at any moment with the hell suppression tripod and soul lantern in his hands. At that thought, the martial Tao prime body summoned the hell suppression tripod and held it in his hands. In a flash, he crossed layers of space and arrived above Greater Avicii. There was a gigantic pitch-black vortex beneath that resembled a door in the middle. It was bottomless and emitted a shuddering aura. Behind the door, it was as though malevolent ghosts were wailing and specters were flickering. The scene of him being thrown into the Avicii gate by Emperor Bo Sun flashed through his mind. At that time, he was forced into Greater Avicii. But this time round, the martial Tao prime body took the initiative to head to Greater Avicii to find the answer. The martial Tao prime body carried the hell suppression tripod and leaped. Previously, it was as though countless pale arms were dragging him into greater Avicii. This time round, he held the hell suppression tripod in his hands and the pitch-black vortex beneath stopped. The Avicii fiend chi dispersed rapidly, revealing a passage. The hell suppression tripod was the Emperor weapon of Great Emperor Infinite after all and was the key to Avicii. The martial Tao prime body passed through the Avicii gate and returned to greater Avicii. The strange and terrifying feeling surfaced once more. After entering greater Avicii, his 5 senses and spirit perception were completely lost. Although he had already controlled the power of a grotto heaven, the martial Tao prime body could not see anything in greater Avicii. Here, there was no darkness or light and everything was unknown. He could not sense the passage of time and seemed to be floating in midair. He had nowhere to exert strength and could not sense the existence of space. Unlike the previous time, he held the hell suppression tripod in his hands this time round. The hellfire that was enough to cause one to fall into endless pain did not descend on him. The martial Tao prime body could not sense the direction and could only walk forward instinctively. The surroundings were silent without a single sound. Even his footsteps could not be heard. After a long time, the martial Tao prime body still did not discover anything. As he had expected, he possessed the hell suppression tripod and did not encounter any danger in greater Avicii. However, he gained nothing as well. Should he continue walking aimlessly or should he leave? Just as the martial Tao prime body was hesitating, a commotion came from the depths of the unknown darkness or chaos on his left. Chapter 26-28, 26-28 Netherworld Treasure Mirror. 26-28 Netherworld Treasure Mirror. MMM. The martial Tao prime body turned around suddenly with a grim expression. He propped his hell suppression tripod in front of him as a shield and his figure was faintly visible, prepared to transform into a grotto heaven at any moment and release his full strength. However, before long, the martial Tao prime body relaxed. The commotion over there was not a living being, but a will. After walking in greater Avicii for so long, this was the first time that the martial Tao prime body sensed the existence of something else, even if it was just a will. The owner of that will had existed in greater Avicii for a long time. After it appeared, it released immense hostility towards the martial Tao prime body. It tried to shake the Tao heart of the martial Tao prime body and released various terrifying scenes in the consciousness of the latter, be it temptation, intimidation or threat. The martial Tao prime body stood on the spot motionlessly and allowed the will to cast its arts nonchalantly. Such tricks were of no threat to the martial Tao prime body. It was just a remnant will without any material power and there were limited methods it could release. The martial Tao prime body had a calm expression and there was no contempt or mockery in his eyes, only sadness. The owner of that will must have been a top-tier expert who ruled over a region in the past and was comparable to a great emperor. Otherwise, there was no way Great Emperor Infinite would sacrifice himself to create this hell with body and suppress that person here. The martial Tao prime body had endured endless pain in greater Avicii. The so-called infinite hell did not merely refer to the infinity of space, time and suffering. It was also an infinite cycle. The moment one fell into Avicii, they would suffer infinite pain without any pauses. There was also infinite life. From a certain perspective, living beings that fell into Avicii were almost immortal. Unless greater Avicii was destroyed, the living beings here would have to endure pain forever and would never be free. There was also infinity of self. Be it living beings with flesh and blood or just souls, every single inch of those bodies and souls would endure infinite pain. How strong was this expert who was comparable to a great emperor back then? However, after falling into greater Avicii and enduring the pain and torture for a long time, there was only a remnant will left. The fact that it could now only release such low-level tricks against the martial Tao prime body was admirable. When the remnant will saw the martial Tao prime body wielding the hell suppression tripod, it must have regarded him as the successor of Great Emperor Infinite. That was the reason why it was so hostile. However, the remnant will posed no threat to the martial Tao prime body. Who are you? The martial Tao prime body attempted to ask. However, he realized that there was no sound when he spoke and the other party could not hear him. Even if the other party truly said something, he would not be able to hear it. This was Greater Avicii. All sounds or spirit consciousness voice transmissions were useless. There was no way to communicate. Because of the appearance of that will, the martial Tao prime body decided to continue exploring ahead. When the martial Tao prime body decided to leave, the remnant will revealed a pleading expression and wanted the martial Tao prime body to stay. Over a long period of time, while enduring endless suffering, the owner of this will was also enduring loneliness and pain. There was no sound, space, time or other life. There was only endless pain and torture. The martial Tao prime body ignored it and continued forward. After a long time, another will sounded from the depths of hell on his right. The martial Tao prime body could vaguely tell that this will was different from the previous one. However, similarly, this will was also extremely hostile towards the martial Tao prime body and released some low-level tricks to threaten him. The martial Tao prime body was unmoved and continued forward. A long time later, a third will did not appear. He walked in the empty Greater Avicii for a long time, but only 2 remnant wills appeared fleetingly. Even after the martial Tao prime body lingered here for long, he gained nothing. Even if he encountered the 2 remnant wills, they could not communicate and he did not obtain any useful information. His surroundings were vast and there was no light or darkness. Under such circumstances, even if I continue, I'm probably not going to find any answers. The martial Tao prime body sighed gently. Just as he was about to turn and leave, his heart skipped a beat and he suddenly took out the soul lantern from his storage bag. After transforming into a grotto heaven, the martial Tao prime body could already defend against the powerful suction force on the essence spirit and soul when one's body came into contact with the soul lantern. The martial Tao prime body released an essence spirit fire and ignited the soul lantern. The soul lantern lit up and a ball of light appeared in Greater Avicii. Light lit up and darkness accompanied it. Initially, there was no light or darkness in Greater Avicii. However, as the soul lantern was ignited, the surrounding chaos turned into darkness and was gradually purged. There was a 10-foot radius of light around the martial Tao prime body. That bit of light made him feel slightly relieved. Right then, the flames that were initially burning vertically in the soul lantern suddenly deviated slightly in a direction. The martial Tao prime body focused his gaze. It was as though the flames of the soul lantern were guided in that direction by some power. In Greater Avicii, the martial Tao prime body had already lost all sense of direction and merely continued forward. But now that he obtained the guidance of the soul lantern, he was invigorated. No matter what, the abnormality of the soul lantern was at least a clue. The martial Tao prime body took a deep breath and strode in the direction indicated by the flames of the soul lantern. After a long time, the footsteps of the martial Tao prime body gradually slowed down and he looked at the ground not far away with a confused expression. Initially, the soul lantern was the only source of light in Greater Avicii. However, another light shone on the ground not far away. The martial Tao prime body walked over and focused his gaze. Half of an ancient mirror-like object was buried in the dust on the ground. The light he saw earlier on was reflected by the ancient mirror through the light emitted by the soul lantern. The martial Tao prime body pondered for a moment before squatting down and taking out the half of the ancient mirror from the sand. The ancient mirror had been buried in Greater Avicii for a long time but still looked intact. The mirror shone with a strange blood color, giving off a sinister aura. This ancient mirror buried in Greater Avicii was definitely not an ordinary item. Furthermore, it was a treasure from the era of Great Emperor Infinite. The martial Tao prime body held the ancient mirror and touched it with his palm. There seemed to be some marks on the back of the ancient mirror. He flipped the ancient mirror over. There were a few words etched on the back of the ancient mirror. Netherworld Treasure Mirror. Chapter 2629, 2629 Living Being. 2629 Living Being. The martial Tao prime body attempted to release his spirit consciousness and swept it across the netherworld treasure mirror. However, apart from a sinister and cold feeling, he did not discover anything else. No matter how he tried, even when he released the power of the Grotto Heaven, there was no reaction from the Netherworld treasure mirror. The martial Dao Prime Body stood up and intended to put away the Netherworld treasure mirror first before continuing to explore in the direction of the flames of the Soul Lantern. However, he suddenly realized that the Netherworld treasure mirror could not be placed in his storage bag. Although the storage bag was open, there was an irreconcilable resistance between it and the Netherworld treasure mirror. The martial Dao Prime Body did not dare to throw the unknown ancient mirror into his consciousness casually either. After pondering for a moment, the martial Dao Prime Body placed the Netherworld treasure mirror in his embrace first and raised the Soul Lantern before continuing in the direction indicated by the flames. After a long time, a tall silhouette vaguely appeared in the darkness ahead. When he approached, the martial Dao Prime Body was shocked to discover that what stood before him was a desolate and lonely ancient city. There was an ancient city in the depths of Greater Avicii. The ancient city did not have city walls. The entrance of the ancient city was like the mouth of an ancient behemoth. It was deep and dark within and one could not see the path ahead. The martial Dao Prime Body hesitated for a moment before heading into the ancient city. The ancient city was silent and there was no life on both sides of the street. However, after entering the ancient city, the despair, pain and suffocating atmosphere in Greater Avicii seemed to have vanished. The ancient city seemed to be a world of its own, isolating the city from Greater Avicii outside. The martial Dao Prime Body held the Hell Suppression tripod in his left hand and the Soul Lantern in his right as he walked along the street. There was nothing on the empty street except for his faint footsteps. After a while, the martial Dao Prime Body seemed to have reached the end of the street and gradually slowed down. In an empty space at the end of the street, an ancient well was erected, looking a little abrupt. The martial Dao Prime Body scanned his surroundings and only headed towards the ancient well after discovering nothing. By the time he arrived at the edge of the ancient well, the flames of the Soul Lantern had returned to normal. It was as though the ancient well before him was the endpoint guided by the Soul Lantern. The martial Dao Prime Body lowered his head and glanced into the ancient well. It was dark inside, sinister and lifeless. His spirit consciousness entered the ancient well and vanished instantly like a rock entering the sea. The martial Dao Prime Body leaned over slightly and extended the Soul Lantern into the ancient well slowly, wanting to see if he could discover anything. Right then, a voice sounded from behind him. It was extremely close. "What did you see?" "Pust." The body of the martial Dao Prime Body froze and he felt a chill run down his spine, shocked. That voice was not a remnant will within Greater Avicii. The martial Dao Prime Body could truly sense that there was indeed someone standing behind him. A living person. In fact, he could even sense the breathing of the person behind him. How was that possible? How could there be anyone alive in this ancient city in the depths of Greater Avicii? Furthermore, he had clearly scanned carefully earlier on and there was no life in the surroundings, let alone a living being. In fact, he did not even know when this person arrived. How did this person appear behind him? That voice sounded familiar. However, the voice appeared way too suddenly and strangely. The martial Dao Prime Body was shocked and did not think too much about it. His spirit perception did not give him any warning. It was all right to assume that the intruder was not hostile towards him. However, there was another possibility. The intruder was strong enough to hide from his spirit perception. The martial Dao Prime Body did not escape right away. If the person behind him truly wanted to attack him, there was no need for him to say anything. The martial Dao Prime Body was completely unprepared. The martial Dao Prime Body turned around slowly and held the Hell Suppression tripod and Soul Lantern horizontally in front of his chest, on guard. Although he was prepared, he was still shocked when he turned around and saw who it was with disbelief in his eyes. "Senior, it's you." A realization flashed through the mind of the martial Dao Prime Body. It was no wonder why that voice sounded familiar. The person standing before him was the long-browed old monk known as the Tomb Keeper from the backyard of Azura Monastery on Great Tai Wei Mountain. The martial Dao Prime Body did not have much interaction with this old monk who guarded the tombs. Back then, the two of them had met once. The martial Dao prime body could vaguely sense that the old monk was extraordinary. Later on, the Green Lotus true body, Yunzhu, and Mo Qing left Avicii and were hunted by 8 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries. At that time, the old monk guarding the tombs was the one who killed more than half of the 8 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries. To be precise, the old monk did not attack at all. A single sentence from him was all it took for a heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries to die. He glanced at another heavenly king of the Buddhist monasteries and that heavenly king died on the spot. Out of the 8 heavenly kings, only 3 of them escaped in time by hiding in Avicii, allowing them to escape from the hands of the old monk. However, at that time, the martial Dao prime body presided over Avicii, so the 3 heavenly kings could not escape the fate of death in the end as well. Thereafter, he had not heard any news of the old monk. He had asked Yunzhu about it, but to no avail. Although the old monk looked like he was at the end of his road and could exhaust his lifespan at any moment, his strength was frightening. The martial Dao prime body had not expected to see this old monk again in this ancient city of Greater Avicii. He only managed to get through Greater Avicii and arrive here thanks to the hell suppression tripod and soul lantern. How did the old monk manage to get here? Even emperors might not be able to leave alive if they were trapped in a lesser hell outside, let alone Greater Avicii. Could this old monk that guarded the tombs be a great emperor? That thought flashed through the mind of the martial Dao prime body and he was shocked. However, he calmed down before long. There was no way he was a great emperor. According to his understanding, ever since great Emperor Longevity passed away, there had not been a great emperor born in this generation. If someone had truly become a great emperor, the news would have long spread through the Trichiliocosm. Senior, why are you? The martial Dao prime body had many questions in his mind and could not help but ask when he saw that the old monk was not hostile towards him. However, before he could finish, the old monk suddenly reached out with his skinny palm and pushed towards his chest. The martial Dao prime body's heart skipped a beat. He watched helplessly as the skinny palm of the old monk pushed towards him. However, his body no longer seemed to be under his control and he could not move at all. Even with the hell suppression tripod and soul lantern in his hands, it was useless. What was this old monk trying to do? Was he trying to kill him? Why? In a flash, countless thoughts flashed through the mind of the martial Dao prime body. Chapter 2630, 2630 Loss of Connection. 2630 Loss of Connection. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind and the skinny palm of the old monk had already slapped the chest of the martial Dao prime body. The martial Dao prime body could not move at all and was prepared to die here. Given the strength of the old monk, even if he had a grotto heaven and a perfected true martial Dao body, he would not be able to withstand a palm strike as such. However, the martial Dao prime body did not feel any pain when the old monk's palm descended. To be precise, the old monk merely nudged him gently. At that moment, the martial Dao prime body was standing at the edge of the ancient well. After being pushed by the old monk, he lost control of his body and balance, falling head first into the dark and sinister ancient well. The figure of the martial Dao prime body was devoured by the darkness and he was falling into an endless abyss. The surrounding ancient city and ancient well seemed to have vanished instantly. The old monk was the only one still around. Arriving at the edge of the dark abyss, the old monk looked down at the falling martial Dao prime body. He smirked slightly, revealing a mysterious smile on his wrinkled old face. A strange look flashed through the depths of the old monk's hazy eyes. The next moment, the martial Dao prime body was completely devoured by the darkness and could not see anything. At the same time, he lost connection with the Green Lotus true body completely. Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Battle Kingdom. Human Monarch's Chamber. Enshrouded by the immortal fog, Su Zimo shuddered and clenched his fists instinctively. Suddenly, he stood up with a furious expression. When the martial Dao prime body entered Greater Avicii, the Green Lotus true body's attention had always been on the martial Dao prime body. After the martial Tao prime body refined the hell suppression tripod, it was equivalent to him controlling Avicii. Even though the martial Tao prime body was in Avicii and had even entered greater Avicii, the two true bodies could still sense one another. Therefore, the Green Lotus true body knew everything that the martial Tao prime body experienced in greater Avicii as though he was experiencing it personally. That was the reason why the Green Lotus true body lost his composure when the martial Tao prime body was pushed into the dark abyss by the old monk. He had completely lost the connection to the martial Tao prime body. Su Zimo's expression was terrible. The martial Tao prime body had just condensed a grotto heaven and the perfected true martial Tao body. In fact, he even had a direction for the dharmic formulation for the next realm of the martial Tao. To think that he would encounter such an undeserved calamity in greater Avicii and his fate was unknown. Su Zimo had not expected to encounter the old monk in the depths of greater Avicii. Less than that, he had not expected the old monk to push him into the dark abyss without a second word. Right then, Su Zimo felt something strange and looked over instinctively. Not far away, human monarch Lin Zhan and immortal queen Ling Long were looking at him with worried expressions. His mind was focused on the martial Tao prime body earlier on. It was only now that Su Zimo snapped out of his stupor and recalled that he was in the chamber of the human monarch. I'm Su Zimo of Tianhuang mainland. Greetings, senior human monarch. Suppressing his emotions, Su Zimo took a deep breath and bowed. Lin Zhan nodded slightly. Immortal Queen Ling Long had a worried expression, as though she could tell that something serious had happened to Su Zimo. She asked gently, "Are you all right?" "It's fine." Su Zimo forced a smile. Even if he revealed this matter, the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long could not do anything about it. Even emperors could not come out of greater Avicii, let alone the human monarch who was severely injured and minor grotto heaven immortal Queen Ling Long. "How long have I been here?" Su Zimo noticed that human monarch Lin Zhan had already woken up from his recuperation and realized that quite a bit of time must have passed. "It's been 7 days." Immortal Queen Ling Long said, "We saw that you seemed to be immersed in a certain state and was experiencing something. As such, we did not disturb you." Su Zimo sighed internally. To think that although the trip of the martial Tao prime body to greater Avicii seemed short, 7 days had passed. Indeed, the passing of time could not be experienced in greater Avicii. "Seniors, have you heard of the Tomb Keeper?" Su Zimo pondered for a moment and asked. The human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long recalled carefully with lost expressions. They exchanged glances and shook their heads slowly. Su Zimo had expected this. Even Yunzhu, who read the ancient books and was well versed in history, did not know the Tomb Keeper. It was understandable for the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long to not know as well. "Senior human monarch, how are your injuries?" Su Zimo asked again. No matter what, the human monarch's current injuries were caused because he disregarded everything and forcefully descended to Tianhuang mainland in the past, back when the human race of Tianhuang mainland met with a calamity. Lin Zhan waved it off and smiled in a carefree manner. "After obtaining your 9 revolutions soul return elixir and Soraka fruit, I've recovered a little and my combat strength has also recovered to the grotto heaven realm. My life is not in danger." Although the human monarch did not say it explicitly, Su Zimo could tell. His combat strength was probably only at the minor grotto heaven realm at the very most and was far from his peak. The human monarch smiled. "Don't worry about me. I'm long used to being haunted by these injuries in the upper world all these years. On the other hand, you're truly shocked me and Ling Long ever since your ascension. In less than 10,000 years, your Green Lotus true body has already cultivated to the peak of a grade 9 heaven immortal. As long as there's a suitable opportunity, you can condense a Tao fruit at any moment and advance to the perfected one realm. Also, that true body of yours with the title of Desolate Marshal is even more powerful. You wreaked havoc at the Immortal Peach Banquet of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain, and the battle in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain shocked the world to its core. It's unfortunate that I did not get to witness it personally. What a pity. Human monarch Lin Zhan was all smiles as he praised Su Zimo with a gratified expression. All these years, he had been plagued by injuries as well internal and external troubles in the Battle Kingdom. He was worried all day and barely smiled. Right now, seeing Su Zimo was the happiest thing that had happened to him in recent years. On the one hand, it was rare to see an old friend from Tianhuang mainland and he felt extremely close. On the other hand, he was relieved that a junior from Tianhuang mainland managed to rise rapidly and become famous in the heavenly world. Back then, the reason why he endured the risk of being severely injured and forcefully descended was because he wanted to make use of Su Zimo's body to fight against the monarchs of the various races. That process was equivalent to him leaving his dermic Dao to Su Zimo. Before leaving, he even passed down the position of the human monarch to this young man back then. Even human monarch Lin Zhan did not expect that the young man back then would be able to make such a name for himself in the heavenly world after ascending to the upper world. Bring me wine. Emotional and excited, the human monarch waved his hand. Immortal Queen Ling Long pursed her lips and smiled. She said with bravado, "I've prepared it a long time ago. Count me in, we'll drink to our heart's content today. Unfortunately, we're missing Brother Feng." The human monarch shook his head gently with a regretful tone. Immortal Queen Ling Long took out 3 jars of strong wine and left one for herself before sharing the other 2 with the human monarch and Su Zimo. Chapter 2631, 2631 Demon Empress Blood Butterfly. 2631 Demon Empress Blood Butterfly. The 3 of them drank heartily before Su Zimo calmed down slightly. He then gradually let go of the matter of the martial Dao prime body. It was useless even if he thought about it. Back when the martial Dao prime body fell into Greater Avicii, he lost contact with the martial Dao prime body. However, at that time, the Hell Suppression Tripod was in the hands of the Green Lotus True Body. After the Green Lotus True Body entered Avicii, he established a new connection with the martial Dao prime body and saved the latter. This time round, the Hell Suppression Tripod and Soul Lantern were both with the martial Dao prime body. Given the current cultivation of the Green Lotus True Body, he would definitely die if he entered Greater Avicii, let alone save the martial Dao prime body. The only thing that made Su Zimo feel slightly relieved was that before the martial Dao prime body fell into the dark abyss, the old monk revealed a mysterious smile. That smile did not seem hostile or murderous, as though there was a deeper meaning. Previously, when he lost contact with the martial Dao prime body, he at least knew where the latter was. However, this time round, he did not know where the martial Dao prime body went. Furthermore, this time round, there was probably no one who could help the martial Dao prime body. Whether the martial Dao prime body could survive and return safely depended on his own fate. At the mention of Feng Cantian and Tianhuang sect, they could not help but talk about the situation in the Fiend domain. Lin Zhan said deeply, because of the existence of Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, it might be difficult for Tianhuang's sect to gain a foothold in the Fiend domain in the future. Immortal Queen Ling Long added, "It said that Emperor Bo Sun has reappeared in this generation as well. In the future, these 2 Fiend Emperors will definitely fight in the Fiend domain. Tianhuang's sect should look for a way out lest they get embroiled in the flames of war between the 2 Fiend Emperors in the future." At the mention of Emperor Bo Sun and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He recalled a question that had been buried in his heart for a long time and asked, "Legend has it that Fiend Emperor Apocalypse was an emperor expert from tens of millions of years ago. How did he manage to survive till this era?" The human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long were both immortal kings after all. They definitely knew more about the cultivation realms and powers of emperors compared to him. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, "Be it great emperors or emperors, their lifespans are similar and are almost always around 10 million years. In the records, only great emperor longevity managed to live for 20 million years and that's already unprecedented. Although Fiend Emperor Apocalypse is strong, he can't have lived for tens of millions of years." Pausing for a moment, Immortal Queen Ling Long said, I'm more inclined to think that Fiend Emperor Apocalypse had in fact died tens of millions of years ago. However, he was resurrected in this generation using some heavenly-defying dermic formulation. Resurrection. When he heard that, Su Zimo frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. He had a feeling that he had neglected an extremely important piece of information. Suddenly, Immortal Queen Linglong asked, Zimo, apart from us, did you know any other experts of the upper world before you ascended? Experts of the upper world? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Apart from the human monarch couple, Dayu was the only other expert of the upper world he knew before he ascended. I know someone indeed. Su Zimo nodded and did not hide anything. However, she's not in the heavenly world. She's in the great wilderness. Back when senior human monarch descended, I even asked him about her but to no avail. Lin Zhan smiled. I'm only an immortal king of the green firmament immortal domain after all. I've only been to the great wilderness once and don't know much about it nor the many experts there. Back in the lower worlds, Su Zimo asked the human monarch about the name, Dayu. Later on, before Dayu mended the heavens, she told him that even in the upper world, there were less than 5 people who knew that her name was Dayu. Dayu even told him that if he were to ask anyone else, he might as well ask about the blood butterfly of the great wilderness. At that thought, Su Zimo asked again, Senior human monarch, have you heard of the blood butterfly of the great wilderness? At the mention of those words, human monarch Lin Zhan was not the only one, even immortal Queen Linglong's expression changed. Blood butterfly? Lin Zhan asked with a grim expression, Demon Empress blood butterfly? I think so. Su Zimo said. Back then, before King Yunyu's clone died, he begged Dayu for mercy and intermittently mentioned something about the blood butterfly and Empress. He was probably trying to call her name, Demon Empress blood butterfly. Immortal Queen Linglong nodded and said, there's only one blood butterfly of the great wilderness. She's famous in the great wilderness, right? Su Zimo probed. In reality, he could roughly guess that from the reactions of the human monarch and immortal Queen Linglong. It's not just in the great wilderness. Human monarch Lin Zhan shook his head gently and lamented, Demon Empress blood butterfly is one of the most renowned and strongest emperors in the entire upper world. The experts of the upper world might not have heard of the immortal emperors of the various immortal domains, but they have definitely heard of Demon Empress blood butterfly. I once heard Immortal Emperor Green Firmament personally mention that among the emperors of the upper world, Demon Empress blood butterfly has the highest potential and is the closest to being a great emperor. So strong. Su Zimo was secretly speechless and surprised. He had long imagined that Dayu was definitely extraordinary in the upper world. However, he did not expect her to be so strong. Immortal Queen Linglong added, the butterfly race is innately weak. Even though the monarch butterfly lineage appeared, they can't compare to other powerful living beings. However, the rise of Demon Empress blood butterfly changed the status of the butterfly race among the 10,000 races single-handedly. It's precisely because of her existence that other living beings don't dare to underestimate the butterfly race. At the mention of that information, Immortal Queen Linglong's tone was filled with admiration and longing. Even her initially calm eyes rippled. Su Zimo was emotional as well. It was as though the figure in blood-red robes had appeared before him once more. She was invincible in Tianhuang mainland and killed all the witches in Tianhuang mainland with a single palm strike and a peerless bearing. He could not imagine how magnificent Dayu's past was. Immortal Emperor Linglong continued, what's even rarer is that Demon Empress blood butterfly is a woman with shocking talent. She doesn't give in to anyone. I admire her immensely. If I can even reach 10% of her in the future, that'll be enough. Su Zimo burst into laughter. From the looks of it, Immortal Queen Linglong clearly viewed Dayu as a role model and a target to chase. Furthermore, Immortal Queen Linglong had not even seen Dayu before. It was clear how much influence Dayu had in the upper world. Su Zimo recounted how Dayu made use of her bloodline phenomenon to descend upon Tianhuang mainland and resolve the calamity of the witch race before mending the heavens to leave. This was the first time the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long had heard of this, and they were even more shocked. Lin Zhan said, "Back when I forcefully descended, I realized that I might leave behind a huge hidden ailment for Tianhuang mainland. To think that she was the one who stepped in to resolve it." Chapter 2632, 2632 Who is the mastermind? 2632 Who is the mastermind? Immortal Queen Ling Long smiled as well. "So, there's such an expert backing you. Seems like the information back then should have come from this demon Empress Blood Butterfly." Su Zimo did not really understand what she meant and asked instinctively, "What information?" Immortal Queen Ling Long said, "Back when you ascended, King Yunyu tried to kill you. The reason why I could arrive in time was because I obtained a piece of information in advance. Otherwise, there was no way I could have divined the precise time and location of your calamity given my methods and capabilities." Su Zimo's expression changed and he narrowed his eyes. Immortal Queen Ling Long did not notice it and sighed gently. "Sigh, unfortunately, Lin Zhan was injured back then. Although I arrived, I was still a step too late and caused you to lose a true body. I don't know why Demon Empress Blood Butterfly did not appear personally back then. If she had, she could have crushed King Yunyu with a single finger." Lin Zhan shook his head gently. "I heard that the situation in the Great Wilderness is rather chaotic and the flames of war are endless. There are a few demon emperors with terrifying strength. For some unknown reason, even Demon Empress Blood Butterfly was severely injured in the past. 12 demon kings under her lead suffered immense losses and more than half of her territory was snatched. In recent years, even after Demon Empress Blood Butterfly's domineering return, she has yet to recover her lost territory completely. She must be too busy handling everything personally." As the two of them conversed, they suddenly realized that Su Zimo, who was at the side, had been silent the entire time and looked terrible. Lin Zhan thought that Su Zimo was worried about the situation in the Great Wilderness and consoled him, "Don't worry, Zimo. Given the current strength of Demon Empress Blood Butterfly, no one should be able to hurt her." Su Zimo was not worried about Daiyu. As the human monarch had said, given Daiyu's strength and methods, there was no need for him to worry. Furthermore, he was not strong enough right now and could not help much even if he headed to the Great Wilderness. He was thinking about something else. Immortal Queen Ling Long had just told him that she only managed to arrive in time back then because she received a piece of information. She thought that the information came from Daiyu. However, given Su Zimo's understanding of Daiyu, there was no way it was done by her. How strong was Daiyu? She was someone who was unwilling to owe anyone favors. As such, why would she send a message to the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long to ask them for help? If Daiyu wanted to save him, there was no need for her to beat around the bush. That was not Daiyu's style of doing things. That style reminded Su Zimo of something else. Back when he killed Prince Yuanzhua in Absolute Thunder City and searched the latter's soul, he saw an image in the latter's memories. Initially, Prince Yuanzhua did not know where he was. It was because he suddenly received a letter that he knew that Su Zimo was taking part in the immortal sect selection and could recognize his appearance after changing. The styles of handling things in both events were way too similar. Su Zimo thought of that right away. At the same time, it confirmed a speculation in his mind. However, that speculation was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Su Zimo had once thought that the moment he arrived at the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, it was as though a pair of invisible hands had appeared behind him, manipulating his fate and guiding his every move. And now, Su Zimo suddenly realized that the invisible hands might have already set a plan in motion from the moment he ascended. "What's on your mind, Zimo?" Immortal Queen Ling Long noticed that Su Zimo did not look too good and asked again. Su Zimo said slowly, "Senior Ling Long, the information you received shouldn't have been from Demon Empress Blood Butterfly." "It wasn't Demon Empress Blood Butterfly?" Immortal Queen Ling Long frowned slightly and asked, "Who was it then?" Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo did not hide anything from the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long and recounted everything that happened in the divine firmament immortal domain. This included how he offended Prince Yuanzhua, participated in the immortal sex election and eventually joined Heaven and Earth Academy after some twists and turns. After hearing that, the expression of immortal Queen Ling Long turned grim as well. It was clear that there was a problem. Lin Zhan was in disbelief and frowned. Someone has been manipulating things ever since he ascended. What's the person's motive? The complete creation Green Lotus. Immortal Queen Ling Long said slowly, there's only one creation Green Lotus in the entire world, and it's the most mysterious treasure with unimaginable potential. Throughout history, it has been extremely difficult for the creation Green Lotus to grow. Now that the creation Green Lotus has fused with Su Zimo in this generation, the conditions for it to grow are even more stringent. If Su Zimo is suppressed and imprisoned in advance, no matter what methods he uses, as long as Su Zimo is unwilling, he won't be able to grow the creation Green Lotus to its final mature state of grade 12. The best way was to give Su Zimo sufficient opportunities to cultivate and grow on his own. When he grows to the mature state of grade 12, he will finally make a move to pluck it. That way, he can obtain the greatest benefits. Through Su Zimo's recount, immortal Queen Ling Long deduced many things. All of them coincided with Su Zimo's previous speculation. Su Zimo was unwilling to believe it the entire time because this speculation would definitely point to a single person in the end. The sect master of the academy. Without that speculation, Su Zimo was indebted to the sect master of the academy through a life-saving grace. Back at the immortal sex election, if not for Yang Ruoxu's persistence and the timely appearance of senior sister Mo Qing, he would have been killed by zither immortal Meng Yao. It was also because of the shelter of Heaven and Earth Academy that he could temporarily escape the threat of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Later on, when he obtained rank 1 of the Earth ranking and returned to Heaven and Earth Academy, he encountered an inexplicable assassination attempt. At that time, things were resolved after the sect master of the academy stepped in personally. Up till now, Su Zimo could not be sure if he was the target of the assassination attempt or if it was someone else. However, no matter what, the sect master of the academy had indeed saved them. Thereafter, he condensed the 10th step on the Tao Heart Stairs. The sect master of the academy appeared and accepted him as an in-name legacy disciple, even giving him a teleportation talisman. It was also because of this teleportation talisman that he could escape back to Heaven and Earth Academy with Tao Yao from the chaotic situation in Langfeng City. Later on, he headed to Absolute Thunder City alone and burned it to ashes. He killed many Heaven Immortals and even Prince Yuanzhua, alarming the Immortal King of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. At that time, the matter was also resolved after the sect master of the academy stepped in. Furthermore, after that incident, the sect master of the academy spoke to him and did not hide the fact that he already knew the secret of the creation Green Lotus. It was because of that conversation that Su Zimo's suspicions towards the sect master of the academy decreased significantly. If the sect master of the academy truly coveted his Green Lotus true body, why would he be honest with him? Chapter 2633, 2633 Technique Reserve. 2633 Technique Reserve. However, all the clues pointed to the sect master of the academy. Or rather, it was someone from Heaven and Earth Academy. That was because back at the Immortal Sect selection, Su Zimo's initial intention was not Heaven and Earth Academy, but Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. However, because of the appearance of Prince Yuanzhua and zither immortal Meng Yao, a huge change happened at the Immortal Sect selection. In the end, after a few twists and turns alongside Yang Ruoxu's insistence as well as senior sister Mo Qing's appearance, he joined Heaven and Earth Academy. The entire process was filled with uncertainty and coincidence. If there was truly such a person plotting behind the scenes, it meant that this person had long divined all the coincidences and determined the eventual direction of the matter. What sort of wisdom was that? Furthermore, after the sect master of the academy spoke to him, Su Zimo even specially asked senior sister Mo Qing about her appearance back then. According to senior sister Mo Qing, it was because of Elder 8 of the Academy that she rushed to the immortal sect selection. Who was Elder 8 of the Academy? What sort of a role was he playing in between? Could it be the sect master of the Academy? Su Zimo looked at Immortal Queen Ling Long and asked softly. Immortal Queen Ling Long remained silent. The implications of this matter were extremely important. The sect master of the Academy was Su Zimo's master after all, and even had a life-saving grace towards the latter. She could not make wild guesses without any evidence. I'm not sure if it's the sect master of the Academy. Immortal Queen Ling Long said in a deep voice. However, the sect master of the Academy is able to divine the heavenly secrets, the human heart, fate and karma. He does have the ability to set such a plan in motion. This was no simple plan. After all, Su Zimo was not the only target. There was also Prince Yuanzhua, the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, Yang Ruoxu, Zither Immortal Mengyao, Painting Immortal Mo Qing. There was even King Yunyu and Immortal Queen Ling Long. Everyone Su Zimo had seen ever since he started cultivating could have been a chess piece. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, although I'm also good at divination, I'm indeed inferior to the sect master of the Academy when it comes to divining the heavenly secrets and fate. At the very least, given my capabilities, there's no way I could have divined the time and location of your ascension. Su Zimo nodded. The 9th stone step of Heaven and Earth Academy's Tao Heart Stairs, the Wisdom Step, was condensed by the sect master of the Academy. Back when he ascended to the 9th stone step, he experienced the will of the sect master of the Academy. The impact on his Tao heart was indeed extremely shocking. The reason why he could survive the 9th stone step and condense the 10th stone step of the Tao Heart Stairs was because his two true bodies resonated and his martial Tao will descended. It was no exaggeration to claim that the sect master of the Academy could plan flawlessly. Suddenly, Immortal Queen Ling Long asked, I heard from Luo'er that back in Langfeng City, you unintentionally released the 9 palace subtle steps. Have you seen such a footwork somewhere? Back when the martial Tao prime body underwent tribulation transcendence, a few humanoid heavenly tribulations descended. Among them, a black-robed woman held a turtle shell in one hand and a horsetail whip in the other. Su Zimo did not know why Immortal Queen Ling Long suddenly mentioned this matter. However, he still nodded and did not hide anything. Upon hearing Su Zimo's description, the eyes of Immortal Queen Ling Long lit up. Su Zimo continued, this black-robed woman's combat strength is terrifying and she once used this mysterious footwork. It was extremely enigmatic and left a deep impression on me. Later on, in Langfeng City, I released it by a stroke of inspiration. Indeed. Immortal Queen Ling Long murmured softly before asking with a smile, do you know who the black-robed woman you saw was? I don't know. Su Zimo shook his head. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, the era of this black-robed woman might be more than 1 billion years ago or even billions of years ago. No matter what, she should be the oldest great emperor in the records of the upper world. It was another great emperor. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Back then, Demoness Ji told him that the white-robed woman with a long sword that the martial Tao prime body saw during the 10th tribulation was a great emperor in the past. Great Empress 9 Nether. If this black-robed woman was once a great emperor as well, that meant that the few people the martial Tao prime body saw when he underwent tribulation transcendence should be great emperors who had left traces of Dermic Tao in the upper world. Immortal Queen Ling Long continued, the black-robed woman you saw was Great Empress 9 Heaven's mystic maiden. She once left behind a Dermic Tao inheritance in the upper world. It's a taboo mystic classic called the Technique Reserve. Taboo mystic classics were extremely rare and only great emperors could leave behind taboo mystic classic inheritances. For example, although Emperor Bo Sun and Fiend Emperor Apocalypse were strong, their Fiend Obsession Buddha Karmic Sutra and Apocalyptic Fiend Sutra were only comparable to taboo mystic classics at most and were not at the level of actual taboo mystic classics. The Technique Reserve is all-encompassing, including divination, geomancy, destiny, phenomenon, dream interpretation, auspicious choice, astral interpretation, astronomical phenomenon, talisman, everything. There are a total of 3 sections to the Technique Reserve, starting with primordial unity. The remaining 2 sections are Chimen Duanjia and 6 Ren divine calculation. Back then, I obtained this opportunity at the same time as the sect master of the academy. We were both chosen by the Dermic Tao of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden, but we received different inheritances. The sect master of the academy received Chimen Duanjia while I received 6 Ren divine calculation. In terms of divining heavenly secrets, fate and offensive techniques, Chimen Duanjia is superior. The Dermic formulation of the 9 palace subtle steps is hidden in 6 Ren divine calculation. At that point, Su Zimo was enlightened. It was no wonder why immortal Queen Ling Long would suddenly mention this matter. So, there was such a relationship between her and the sect master of the academy. The reason why the sect master of the academy was superior to her in terms of divining fate was because he obtained Chimen Duanjia of the technique reserve. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly asked, "Senior, you just said that there are 3 sections to the technique reserve. Who obtained the inheritance of primordial unity?" According to immortal Queen Ling Long, primordial unity was the first of the 3 sections in the technique reserve. Therefore, it should be even more mysterious. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, "The Dermic Tao of primordial unity has a unique origin and it was not passed down. Neither I nor the sect master of the academy obtained it." Pausing for a moment, immortal Queen Ling Long suddenly took out an ancient turtle shell from her storage bag and handed it to Su Zimo. "Back then, when you saw the turtle shell in the hands of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden, this should be what it looked like, right?" Su Zimo focused his gaze and nodded. The size of the turtle shell and even the patterns on it were identical to the one he had seen in the hands of the black-robed woman. From the looks of it, the weapon of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden had already been passed down and was obtained by immortal Queen Ling Long. Right then, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. He thought of the other weapon in the hands of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden, the jade-handled horsetail whip. It was completely identical to the primordial unity horsetail whip in his possession. Furthermore, the primordial unity horsetail whip carried the words primordial unity. There was also the primordial unity section in the technique reserve. Was there a connection between the 2? Chapter 2634, 2634 Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. 2634 Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. Immortal Queen Ling Long smiled gently. "If I'm not wrong, the primordial unity horsetail whip of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden should be in your possession." "Yes." Su Zimo did not hide anything and asked bluntly, "Senior, may I ask if there's a connection between the primordial unity horsetail whip and the primordial unity section of the technique reserve?" "Yes." Immortal Queen Ling Long first gave a definite answer before asking again, "Did you obtain any secret skill sutras when you obtained the primordial unity horsetail whip?" "Indeed, there's a sutra called the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. The 2 sections add up to less than 600 words." Su Zimo said, "However, the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra is filled with strange runes and I can't understand a single word." To be precise, the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra was a lineage memory that Su Zimo obtained when he stood on the 9th stone step of the Tao Heart Stairs and sorted out the heavenly secrets. As though he thought of a possibility, Su Zimo could not help but ask, could the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra be the first section of the technique reserve, primordial unity? Immortal Queen Ling Long smiled. Yes and no. Su Zimo was puzzled. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, "Back then, Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden only obtained the primordial unity horsetail whip after she obtained the creation green lotus and nurtured it to the mature state of grade 12. Of course, she also obtained the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra." Immortal Queen Ling Long's words revealed another piece of information. The creation green lotus was extremely ancient and had already existed in the era of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden. Immortal Queen Ling Long continued, "In reality, the later 2 sections of the technique reserve, Chimen Duanjia and 6 Ren divine calculation, were created by Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden. The first section, primordial unity, was the Dharmic Tao comprehended by Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden through the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. The technique reserve was only at the level of a taboo mystic classic after primordial unity was added to it. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and probed, "Senior, do you mean that the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra is at an even higher level than primordial unity?" "Of course." Immortal Queen Ling Long nodded. Different people might obtain different Dharmic Tao comprehensions after reading the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. According to Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden, although the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra only has slightly more than 600 words, it contains endless secrets of the universe. Anyone who can comprehend a secret skill from it will benefit endlessly. If even the oldest Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden in the records had such a high evaluation of the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, what was the background of the creation green lotus that gave birth to the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra? Su Zimo was secretly speechless and his heart skipped a beat. For a moment, he could not accept such overwhelming information. A moment later, he gradually composed himself and took out a white paper from his storage bag, prepared to write out the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra completely. "What are you doing?" Su Zimo had just written a few runes when Immortal Queen Ling Long stopped him hurriedly and asked in a deep voice. Su Zimo said, "I don't recognize the strange runes on the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra, so I'm going to write them down to receive your guidance, Senior." Immortal Queen Ling Long said carefully, "You have to think carefully. Once you write down this secret skill, I'll naturally see it as well." Su Zimo smiled nonchalantly. "Both of you have saved my life before. It's nothing much for me to share the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. In fact, it would be best if you can comprehend the primordial unity section from this secret skill, Senior." In reality, back in Heaven and Earth Academy, when Su Zimo stood on the 9th stone step of the Tao Heart Stairs, he realized that the sect master of the academy should know about the strange runes. However, in the depths of his heart, he had always been wary of the sect master of the academy. Therefore, right from the beginning, he had not mentioned this matter to the sect master of the academy or sought guidance from the latter about the strange runes in the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra. However, Su Zimo naturally had no doubts about the human monarch couple. "All right." When Immortal Queen Ling Long saw that Su Zimo had already decided, she nodded in agreement and was a little excited. After all, this legendary sutra was extremely important to her as well. As Su Zimo had said, if she could comprehend the primordial unity section from it, it would be of immense help and advancement to her. Before long, Su Zimo recorded all the strange runes in the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra based on his memories on the white paper and handed it to Immortal Queen Ling Long and the human monarch. Lin Zhan waved it off with a bitter smile. "This is utter gibberish to me and I can't make tales of it." "It's indeed these words." Immortal Queen Ling Long murmured softly with a grim expression. "What words? What race are they from?" Su Zimo asked. "I'm not sure." Immortal Queen Ling Long shook her head. "The first time I came into contact with these words was when I received the inheritance of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden. These words don't seem to be from any race. They seem more like an extremely ancient civilization. In fact..." At that point, Immortal Queen Ling Long suddenly paused for a moment before saying slowly, "In fact, it might even be from the major Kiliacosm." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He knew very little about the major Kiliacosm. If Immortal Queen Ling Long's deduction was true, the origin of this Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra was huge. Relying on her inheritance of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden, Immortal Queen Ling Long quickly transformed the strange runes of the secret skill into modern words. Su Zimo looked over word by word. "Observe the Tao of the heavens and execute accordingly. Through that, fulfillment can be achieved. There are 5 negative attributes manifested in the heart and those who derive them shall thrive. The universe is within grasp and myriad transformations arise within oneself." Every single sentence seemed to contain some secret of heaven and earth and the logic of the great Tao. However, Su Zimo could not make out anything within a short period of time. The Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra only had slightly more than 600 words and he browsed through it before long. Suddenly, Su Zimo's expression changed. He saw some passages in the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra and read it out instinctively. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. When the earth's killing intent is released, the dragon snake shall rise. When the human's killing intent is released, heaven and earth shall topple. Wah! Su Zimo was shocked. He was way too familiar with those 3 sentences. Those 3 sentences were the opening profoundness of the 3 great sword arts. Suddenly, Su Zimo asked, "Senior, have you ever heard of anyone in the sword world who once obtained the creation green lotus?" There was one. Immortal Queen Ling Long nodded. It said that this person nurtured the creation green lotus to grade 11. The most famous thing about this person is the 3 great sword arts he created alongside a peerless divine power that shook the entire trichiliocosm. Su Zimo nodded. There was no mistake. In that case, this expert of the sword world had once obtained the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra and comprehended the 3 great sword arts from this secret skill sutra. It was no wonder why immortal Queen Ling Long would say that different people would comprehend different dharmic Taoists from the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. Chapter 2635, 2635 Meaning of Creation. 2635 Meaning of Creation. This Secret Skill Sutra. Human monarch Lin Zhan looked at the 600-odd words that immortal Queen Ling Long had already translated on the white paper with a grim expression and shock in his eyes. Right now, Su Zimo was a grade 9 heaven immortal. Given his current cultivation realm, it would be difficult for him to comprehend anything even if he saw the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. However, it was different for the human monarch. He had long condensed a grotto heaven and became an immortal king. Given the human monarch's talent coupled with his experience and insight as an immortal king, he could see many obscurities in those 600-odd words. Although there are only slightly more than 600 words, every single word contains the utmost truth of the great Tao. The more you try to figure it out, the more you can understand its intricacies. Lin Zhan looked at immortal Queen Ling Long and lamented, "It's no wonder why you said that this Yin Yang Talisman Sutra doesn't seem like something from the upper world and might be from the major Kiliacosm instead. I'm afraid only the legendary major Kiliacosm can nurture such an exquisite dharmic Tao." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "Senior human monarch, back when you forcefully descended, you were injured by the heaven and earth laws. Will this Yin Yang Talisman Sutra be of any help to your injuries?" "I'm afraid it'll do more than just help," Lin Zhan said in a deep voice. "If I can comprehend something from it, not only will my injuries heal, I might even gain an unimaginable opportunity." "That's great," Su Zimo said with a smile. Immortal Queen Ling Long was delighted as well. In reality, the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra's help towards the human monarch's injuries was even greater than the 9 revolutions soul return elixir and Siraka fruit. The human monarch's injuries were caused by the heaven and earth laws. The only way to heal the essence spirit's injuries was by comprehending some secret of the heaven and earth laws. Actually, there's another reason why I guessed that the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra came from the major Kiliacosm. Immortal Queen Ling Long looked at Su Zimo before saying, "It's because based on the inheritance information that I received with the sect master of the academy back then, we could roughly deduce that there's a high chance the creation green lotus that gave birth to the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra came from the major Kiliacosm." That speculation coincided with Su Zimo's earlier thoughts. The Ling Long Immortal King said, "Many people in the upper world have heard of the creation green lotus and know that there's only one in the entire world. However, not many people know of its true origin." The reason why immortal Queen Ling Long knew this was because she had once obtained the inheritance of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden. Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden obtained the creation green lotus and nurtured it to its mature state. However, they were too far away from the times of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden. Unless it was someone like immortal Queen Ling Long who obtained Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden's inheritance, there was almost no one who had any understanding of the latter. The creation green lotus is extremely difficult to nurture. From what I know, only Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden managed to nurture it to grade 12. The Ling Long Immortal King continued, therefore, almost everyone in the upper world underestimated the creation green lotus and merely thought that it was a variant spirit plant of the upper world. There were many variant spirit plants in the upper world, such as the mystic frost plum tree of the divine firmament immortal domain, the immortal peach tree of the jade firmament immortal domain, the immortal willow of the green firmament immortal domain, and so on. Even in the center of the heavenly world, the builder tree was considered as a variant spirit plant. From that perspective, although the creation green lotus was rare, it was still within their understanding. Lin Zhan nodded as well. If everyone knew that the creation green lotus was from the major Kiliacosm, it won't be just King Yunyu attacking you. At that time, all the emperors might be tempted. Su Zimo nodded. He knew in his heart that the human monarch was not exaggerating at all. Even if the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra was released, countless emperors would fight for it, let alone the creation green lotus. In reality, over the years of cultivation, as the green lotus true body grew, Su Zimo had gradually discovered the various phenomenons of the green lotus true body. The few powerful treasures derived were only one of them. Even in terms of bloodline, the creation green lotus crushed all other living beings. Back at the bottom of the malevolent blood lake in the Azura battlefield, the green lotus true body could even devour the bone of the white tiger sacred beast. Against a god like the builder tree that had lived for countless years, the green lotus true body had no intention of bowing down and could even forcefully absorb the life force and power of the builder tree. Actually, back in Tianhuang mainland, Dayu had already told him that the potential of the green lotus true body might surpass the dragon phoenix true body. It was only after all these years that Su Zimo was truly certain. If they were at the same cultivation realm, the current green lotus true body was enough to suppress the dragon phoenix true body. Be it in terms of essence spirit, bloodline body, or many divine powers and secret skills, the green lotus true body had already surpassed the dragon phoenix true body. Even now, the green lotus true body had yet to grow to its peak. The Ling Long Immortal King said, although the taboo dragon phoenix is strong and can be considered as a top-tier powerful race that's extremely rare, it's not the only one. Actually, the losses for you weren't that significant when you ascended and met the calamity, resulting in your dragon phoenix true body's destruction. Everyone thinks that the creation green lotus's foundation lies in the green lotus. However, in reality, the true strength of the creation green lotus lies in the word creation. Why creation? Su Zimo murmured softly. The word creation is the most obscure and mysterious. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, the creation green lotus stole the creation of heaven and earth. Although the opportunities and encounters you obtained seemed like coincidences, they were all within the creation process. Up till this point of your ascension, you must have obtained countless opportunities to be able to cultivate to this point within 10,000 years. These are all for the creation of your fate. Although your dragon phoenix true body was destroyed, your green lotus true body could inherit the many divine powers and secret skills of the dragon phoenix true body perfectly. In other words, even the dragon phoenix true body became one of your creations and became a part of the green lotus true body. That was the terror of the creation green lotus. In fact, it inherited everything about the dragon phoenix true body almost perfectly and turned it into his own creation. Lin Zhan nodded as well. I see that you have the inheritances of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taoists. In fact, you even have the inheritances of many living beings of the demon race. There are so many dermic Taoists that are completely different and are even at odds with one another. The creation green lotus is probably the only one who can gather all of them in one body but maintain harmony. Su Zimo was enlightened. Even an expert like Emperor Bo Sun who possessed the body of a fiend and Buddha faced a problem in his cultivation. Right now, he had the pure jade manual of the immortal Tao, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra of the Buddhist Tao and the Heaven Burial Sutra of the Fiend Tao. All of them were taboo mystic classics. For the demon Tao, he possessed the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness as well as many top-tier cultivation techniques such as the Void Thunder Manual and the secret skills and divine powers of the 4 sacred beasts. If it was any other living being, be it their physical body or essence spirit, they would have exploded long ago when those dharmic Taos were mixed together. Only the green lotus true body could cultivate normally after turning the various dharmic Taos into his own creation. Chapter 2636, 2636 Opportunity to Live Forever. 2636 Opportunity to Live Forever. Su Zimo gradually digested the information about the creation green lotus. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo asked, given my current cultivation, if I can condense a Tao fruit and advance to the perfected one realm, the green lotus true body should be able to grow to the peak of grade 12. However, if grade 12 is the peak, how will the green lotus true body grow after the grotto heaven and emperor realms? Immortal Queen Ling Long smiled. You don't have to worry about that. I'm afraid no one in the upper world can tell you the origin, potential and secrets of the creation green lotus. However, it doesn't matter even if the creation green lotus only has 12 grades. A grade 12 creation green lotus is in a mature state. How you grow in the future will depend on the fate of your cultivation. For example, a child can only be considered as an adult after growing for many years. However, that does not mean that the child's strength will stop there. The mature state of grade 12 for the creation green lotus is only the starting point of its cultivation. You will be the one who will have to pave its future from there on. Su Zimo was enlightened. If the creation green lotus truly came from the major kiliacosm, there was probably no one who could be certain about anything. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly asked, how much do you know about the major kiliacosm, seniors? Have any living beings of the upper world ascended there over the years? Lin Zhan and Immortal Queen Ling Long exchanged glances and shook their heads. Immortal Queen Ling Long pondered for a moment. The major kiliacosm should exist. However, almost all traces of the major kiliacosm in the books of history have been erased, so there's no way to verify it. We don't know if anyone can ascend to the major kiliacosm either. The human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long had ascended to the upper world for hundreds of thousands of years and had both cultivated to the grotto heaven realm. However, even with their experience, they did not know anything about the major kiliacosm. Lin Zhan said, since the lifespan of an emperor is 10 million years, I believe that the emperor realm is not the end point of cultivation. Perhaps the chance to live forever lies within the major kiliacosm. Su Zimo nodded in deep thought. Su Zimo had benefited immensely from his conversation with the human monarch and immortal Queen Ling Long. Not only did he obtain a lot of information about the creation green lotus, he even confirmed some of his previous guesses. More importantly, with the reminder of immortal Queen Ling Long, he would be even more careful and prepare in advance to deal with the worst-case scenario. According to immortal Queen Ling Long, she and the sect master of the academy received the inheritance of Great Empress Nine Heavens Mystic Maiden. Since immortal Queen Ling Long knew about the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra, it meant that the sect master of the academy should know as well. In other words, the sect master of the academy might have a greater motive to attack him than King Yunyu. That was because King Yunyu merely viewed him as a variant spirit plant and a rare medicinal herb. However, the sect master of the academy might view him as the most precious treasure of the upper world. That was also the reason why King Yunyu hunted him down the moment he ascended, prepared to capture him and refine him into an immortal pill. However, the sect master of the academy painstakingly set up a plan and even appeared personally to protect him so that he could grow smoothly. That was because the higher the grade of the creation green lotus, the greater the help it would provide to the sect master of the academy. The Yin Yang Talisman Sutra was also derived from the grade 11 creation green lotus. Of course, the prerequisite was that the person who set this plan was indeed the sect master of the academy. Although the sect master of the academy was the most suspicious target, Su Zimo was still unsure right now. That was because there were still a few things that could not be explained. First, the person who tried to kill him with King Yunyu back then was not the sect master of the academy. It was somebody that immortal Queen Ling Long had not seen before. Since the creation green lotus was so important, the fewer people who knew about it, the better. If it was truly a trap set up by the sect master of the academy, there was no need for him to send anyone else. Back then, Su Zimo thought that he was just lucky that the hell suppression tripod happened to devour a Grotto Heaven spirit treasure right before he was devoured by the black hole. From the looks of it, this person should have fed the hell suppression tripod the Grotto Heaven spirit treasure intentionally. Second, there were too many coincidences that happened at the immortal sect selection. However, there were no traces of the sect master of the academy involved. Although the appearance of painting immortal Mo Qing was a little abrupt, it was because she had obtained news of Elder 8 of the academy. Third, the sect master of the academy did not hide the fact that he knew about the creation Green Lotus. That action was akin to alerting the enemy to his presence. Fourth, if the sect master of the academy valued the creation Green Lotus so much, why had he never restricted Su Zimo's movements? For example, he would definitely meet immortal Queen Ling Long at the Nine Firmament meet. Once they met, it was inevitable for him to suspect the sect master of the academy. Since the sect master of the academy knew about his relationship with immortal Queen Ling Long and the others, the best way was to find a random reason not to let him take part in the Nine Firmament meet and avoid meeting immortal Queen Ling Long and the others. The sect master of the academy had never restricted his freedom. Wasn't he afraid that Su Zimo would condense a Tao fruit elsewhere and advance to the perfected One realm, escaping from Heaven and Earth Academy forever? There were many things that could not be explained. If this was not done by the sect master of the academy, he might encounter even greater danger after leaving Heaven and Earth Academy. Even if it was truly the sect master of the academy, there was no way he could leave just like that either. There were a few other people in Heaven and Earth Academy who had a deep relationship with him. Yang Ruoxu, Princess Scarlet Rainbow, Lu Ping and senior sister Mo Qing. Furthermore, Tao Yao was still in Heaven and Earth Academy. This matter was not easy to deal with. Immortal Queen Ling Long said, "Why don't you cultivate here? I can set up an immortal formation for you to block aura detection. When you break through, you won't attract much attention." Su Zimo nodded. "I'll stay here for a few days. If I can comprehend the opportunity to break through, I'll do it here." If human monarch Lin Zhan's injuries were to recover, he could naturally protect Su Zimo. But now, the human monarch's injuries had yet to recover. Even with the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra, it was difficult for him to gain anything within a short period of time. If Su Zimo stayed too long at the human monarch's side, he would definitely alert the mastermind. At that time, there was a high chance that he would bring trouble to the Battle Kingdom. The Battle Kingdom was currently troubled internally and externally and could not withstand such an impact. Su Zimo sighed internally. If the martial Tao prime body was still in the Fiend domain, he could head over to Tianhuang's sect in the Fiend domain to attempt tribulation transcendence. Even if an immortal king expert came, the martial Tao prime body could suppress him. Even if he could not win, the martial Tao prime body could protect the Green Lotus true body and head to the infinite hell. But now, he had already lost contact with the martial Tao prime body after the latter fell into the ancient abyss of Greater Avicii with an unknown fate. The surroundings were dark and the martial Tao prime body felt his body falling uncontrollably. Be it his gaze or spirit consciousness, he could not detect anything. It felt as though he was traveling through some spatial tunnel. However, the dizziness and tearing sensation was even stronger and time dragged on. Thankfully, he did not suffer any injuries during the process. After a long time, the body of the martial Tao prime body suddenly lightened and he finally regained control. Chapter 2637, 2637 Mountain Ridges of Corpses and Bones. 2637 Mountain Ridges of Corpses and Bones. The martial Tao prime body controlled his body and stood in midair, looking around. At the same time, he released his spirit consciousness to check out the surroundings. The surroundings were dark and sinister. There were no sun, moon or stars above his head and the rare few light sources came from various strange vegetation. Some of the tall trees were pitch black with lush leaves. However, most of the leaves were pitch black. Only a few leaves emitted a faint glow from time to time. In the dark environment, they flickered and looked rather terrifying. In the darkness far away, a large shadow appeared motionlessly, as though many gigantic ancient beasts were hidden in the depths of the darkness. It seemed particularly sinister in the quiet and dark environment. On the ground not far away, there were fist-sized ghastly green flames that floated like ghost flames. The martial Dao Prime body focused his gaze and narrowed his eyes instinctively. Beneath the balls of ghost flames were scattered white bones with many slashes and bite marks. It was clear how tragic a combat battle had broken out here back then. The martial Dao Prime body sensed it briefly. Although there was also some heaven and earth essence chi in the surroundings, it was clearly much thinner than the heavenly world. Of course, it was far superior to the Dragon Abyss star. However, there was a dark and sinister power mixed in the heaven and earth essence chi that was different from the heavenly world. The martial Dao Prime body felt as though he had arrived in an unfamiliar world. Not only was this world out of place with the environment of the heavenly world, the atmosphere was even completely different from the entire upper world. Looking around, even the vegetation here was unfamiliar and strange. The martial Dao Prime body had never seen it in the upper world before. Where am I? The martial Dao Prime body frowned slightly. He sensed carefully and could tell that he had already lost connection with the Green Lotus true body. Under normal circumstances, he controlled the Hell Suppression Tripod. Even in Greater Avicii, he could maintain a connection with the Green Lotus true body. After falling here, his connection with the outside world was severed completely. The martial Dao Prime body circulated the power of the grotto heaven and punched casually. The surrounding void trembled and a crack appeared, revealing a spatial tunnel within. The martial Dao Prime body entered in a flash. Before long, another void split open and the martial Dao Prime body walked out of the spatial tunnel, frowning. Something was amiss. Although he could tear through the void and teleport at any moment, he could not return to Greater Avicii, let alone the heavenly world. It was as though there was an unshakable barrier between him and Greater Avicii. How could this be? The martial Dao Prime body pondered as he surveyed his surroundings. He had just undergone spatial teleportation and had already arrived near the tall shadow he first saw. Now that he was closer, he could see clearly that the majestic shadows hidden in the darkness were endless mountain peaks. Initially, the martial Dao Prime body did not think too much about it. However, his gaze inadvertently swept past the nearest mountain peak and his pupils constricted. Corpses were strewn all over the mountain peak and there were all sorts of living beings. Apart from humans, there were also other races. How was this an ordinary mountain? It was a mountain of blood and corpses. The martial Dao Prime body released his spirit consciousness and it extended outwards continuously. Corpses were strewn everywhere in the endless mountain ridges and white bones were piled beneath. In fact, some living beings had just died not long ago and their flesh had yet to rot. The terrifying thing was that all the towering mountains and precipitous peaks within 5,000 kilometers of the martial Dao Prime body's spirit consciousness were in such a tragic state. This entire mountain ridge was filled with corpses and bones. Right then, the martial Dao Prime body could sense more than 100 cultivators speeding towards him. The group of cultivators were not surprised by the mountains of corpses and bones around them. It was as though they were already used to it and looked like they were locals. There's some activity over there. Let's go take a look. We've just taken down Weeping Soul Ridge. Let's not let the other factions take advantage of it. Sigh, the nether chi is depleted and resources are scarce. It's getting harder and harder to cultivate. I wonder if I'll ever have the chance to become a Hell General in my lifetime. I'll have my own territory and lead millions of Hell pawns with countless beauties by my side. Hell General? Don't count on it. We'll be Hell pawns for the rest of our lives. Fighting and killing is commonplace in the North Ridge. It's already not bad if we can survive for a few more years. Do you think you can live long even if you cultivate to become a Hell General? Even the previous territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge was killed by our territorial lord. When the martial Dao Prime body heard that, he frowned slightly. Nether chi? Hell pawns? Hell General? Weeping Soul Ridge, North Ridge? Weeping Soul Ridge and North Ridge should be names. However, what were the Nether Chi, Hell Pawns and Hell Generals that the cultivators were referring to? Ever since he ascended to the upper world, the martial Tao prime body had been cultivating in seclusion most of the time. However, he had browsed through cultivation techniques and secret skills of the upper world. In Avicii alone, countless legacies of the Trichiliacosm were passed down. There had never been any mention of Nether Chi, Hell Pawns or the likes in those inheritances. In the senses of the martial Tao prime body, the cultivation realms of the 100-odd cultivators varied. The weaker ones were black immortals while the stronger ones were heaven immortals. The leader should be a grade 9 heaven immortal. Furthermore, the martial Tao prime body noticed that although the cultivators were in human form, there were slight differences. The pupils of those cultivators were brown. Perhaps due to the lack of light source, their skin looked pale, lacking the color of blood. The cultivators exuded a sinister and cold aura that was extremely similar to their surroundings. The martial Tao prime body had never seen such an aura in the upper world. He knew nothing about this place and was about to find someone to ask. At that thought, the martial Tao prime body welcomed the group of them. Commander Chui, how many nether stones will the territorial lord split to us now that we've taken down Weeping Soul Ridge? A cultivator in the crowd asked with a grin. Don't worry, you'll get your share. Commander Chui said indifferently. Boss, look. Someone's over there. Right then, a few cultivators pointed to a purple-robed man who was flying over from afar and reminded. What's his cultivation realm? Why can't I detect him? He's even wearing a mask, how secretive. Boss, why do I feel that this person exudes an aura of life and doesn't seem like he's from our North Ridge? He looks like a fat sheep who might have quite a number of nether stones on him. A few cultivators discussed softly. Commander Chui looked at the purple-robed man not far away and narrowed his eyes slightly, sending a voice transmission, wait for my instructions later. If he's truly a living person, we'll kill him first. If there are truly nether stones, we'll split them first. Understood. The cultivators behind him replied hurriedly and licked their lips with excited eyes. Chapter 2638, 2638 Hell? 2638 Hell? Hey, where are you from? Commander Chui glared at the purple-robed cultivator not far away and asked loudly. Where am I? The purple-robed cultivator wore a cold silver mask and asked in a deep voice instead of replying. This is Weeping Soul Ridge. Commander Chui replied. Where is Weeping Soul Ridge? The purple-robed cultivator continued asking. Commander Chui said, Weeping Soul Ridge is one of the mountain ridges in the North Ridge. There are 100,000 mountain ridges in the North Ridge. Among the 100,000 mountain ridges, Weeping Soul Ridge is one of the most inconspicuous ones. For some unknown reason, the purple-robed cultivator seemed to exude an invisible might. Each time the purple-robed cultivator asked a question, Commander Chui would reply instinctively as though he could not control himself. A commotion broke out in the crowd behind him. Commander Chui's heart skipped a beat but he snapped out of it quickly. His expression darkened as he glared at the purple-robed cultivator not far away and hollered, I was the one asking you a question. Answer me honestly and don't change the topic. Let me ask you again, where are you from? The purple-robed cultivator was silent for a moment before replying, Heavenly World. Heavenly World? Commander Chui and the 100-odd cultivators behind him were clearly stunned. But soon, Commander Chui and the others exchanged glances and burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, this person actually said that he's from the heavenly world? How stupid. He doesn't even know how to lie. Commander Chui, don't waste your breath on him. I think this person is just messing with us. Let's kill him first and see what treasures are in his storage bag. A cultivator could not help but urge. I'll advise you guys. Don't come sending yourselves to death. Suddenly, the purple-robed cultivator spoke with an indifferent tone. The martial Tao prime body had just arrived and did not know anything about this place. He did not want to start a massacre after just encountering the cultivators here, and that was why he reminded them. However, if they wanted to die, he would not show mercy either. Bloody hell, he's even threatening us. A grade 8 Earth Immortal cultivator could not hold it in any longer and laughed sinisterly. Let me test how strong you are first. The moment that cultivator moved, the remaining 100-odd cultivators attacked as well. Instantly, many dermic treasures and weapons tore through the air. Half of the cultivators wielded sharp blades and charged in the direction of the martial Tao prime body, wanting to fight in melee combat. Behind the silver mask of the martial Tao prime body, his gaze suddenly turned even deeper. He raised his hand gently. The 100-odd cultivators on the other end, Commander Chui included, froze on the spot motionlessly. Even the many dermic treasures and weapons that were charging towards the martial Tao prime body hovered in midair, as though they were frozen on the spot by an invisible force. Many cultivators widened their eyes in shock. What was that? Immobilizing spell? Commander Chui was still shocked. What immobilizing spell could restrict him to the spot? Could it be a peerless divine power? Could this person be a Hell General? Their territorial lord was a Hell General. However, even the territorial lord could not render them motionless just by raising his hand. Just as the many cultivators were letting their imaginations run wild, the martial Tao prime body waved his palm gently. It was as though he was chasing away a few noisy mosquitoes. In midair, the dermic treasures and weapons seemed to have received some sort of power and flew back at an even faster speed, entering the bodies of the many cultivators. Poof! 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 The bodies of the many cultivators exploded into blood mists. The landing points of the dermic treasures and weapons were extremely precise and pierced the glabella of the cultivators. Their essence spirits were destroyed and they died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, Commander Chui was the only one left among the 100-odd cultivators. Commander Chui's face was pale and his body stiffened, shivering in fear. He could not understand how he managed to survive. The martial Tao prime body did not say anything more to him. When he approached, he captured Commander Chui's essence spirit and used the soul-searching art. Since you guys refuse to tell me, I'll see for myself. A moment later, the soul-searching art ended and Commander Chui's essence spirit turned dispirited and dim. His aura was weak and he was at the end of his road. Thereafter, the martial Tao prime body threw away his essence spirit in deep thought. As he had initially guessed, he had already arrived at a foreign world that was completely different from the upper world. The cultivation resources here were different from the upper world. Living beings of the upper world cultivated and absorbed heaven and earth essence chi. Apart from their surroundings, they could also use various immortal medicine, essence spirit stones and other cultivation resources to absorb heaven and earth essence chi. Although there was heaven and earth essence chi in this foreign world, there was another power mixed in it. That power was the dark and cold aura that the martial Tao prime body sensed. This aura was mixed with heaven and earth essence chi, and the living beings of this foreign world called it nether chi. The cultivation resources required by this group of cultivators were the nether stones. As for the hell pawns and hell generals mentioned by these cultivators, those were the cultivation realms of this foreign world. In this foreign world, be it black, earth or heaven essence realm cultivators, they were all on the low end of the hierarchy and were collectively called hell pawns. One could only become a hell general after condensing a nether crystal. The so-called nether crystal corresponded to the Tao fruit of the upper world. In other words, the cultivation realm of a hell general was equivalent to the perfected one realm and corresponded to the perfected immortals, perfected fiends, and perfected arhats of the upper world. Above the hell generals were the legendary hell kings who were equivalent to grotto heaven realm experts of the upper world. Commander Chui's cultivation realm was limited. Although he was only at the level 9 heaven essence realm, he was only a hell pawn and was at the bottom of this foreign world. He did not have much information about this foreign world. Commander Chui only knew that he belonged to Weeping Soul Ridge. Weeping Soul Ridge was only one of 100,000 mountain ridges. Even so, in Commander Chui's memories, the territory of Weeping Soul Ridge was more than 500,000 kilometers and there were hundreds of millions of living beings in the territory. The Martial Dao Prime Body was shocked when he saw that information. This was one of the most unassuming mountain ridges among the 100,000 mountain ridges, but it spanned more than 500,000 kilometers and there were hundreds of millions of living beings. In that case, what were the other mountain ridges that were even wider like? According to Commander Chui's memories, the 100,000 mountain ridges were known as the North Ridge. The master of the North Ridge was known as King North Ridge and ruled over the entire North Ridge. The Martial Dao Prime Body was disappointed that he could not find any specific information about this foreign world even after searching through Commander Chui's memories. Commander Chui's memories were limited to the North Ridge. If he wanted to know more, he might have to look for a Hell General cultivator. Hell Pawns, Hell Generals. A thought flashed through the mouth of the Martial Dao Prime Body as he murmured softly. Could I have arrived in the true hell? That thought flashed through the mind of the Martial Dao Prime Body and his heart skipped a beat. When he recalled the dark and sinister environment around him and the mountain ridge that was filled with corpses and bones, the Martial Dao Prime Body felt that the probability of his guess was extremely high. Chapter 2639 Utter Destruction. 2639 Utter Destruction. There were extremely few records of hell in the upper world and there were only many legends about the netherworld and hell. However, no one had seen what hell was like. Heavenly Wolf had once said that living beings could not enter the netherworld. Only the souls that remained after living beings died could enter the netherworld. Was the netherworld and hell the same place? Although he obtained quite a bit of information from using the soul-searching art on Commander Chui, this foreign world was still filled with too many unknowns for the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, from Commander Chui's memories, the Martial Dao Prime Body found the center of Weeping Soul Ridge. The territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge had the cultivation of a Hell General and was equivalent to a perfected immortal of the heavenly world. As such, his understanding of this foreign world was definitely even more detailed. The Martial Dao Prime Body tore through the void and teleported directly. Although Weeping Soul Ridge was only one of 100,000 mountain ridges, it occupied an extremely vast area and hundreds of millions of living beings in its territory were under the rule of a territorial lord. Before long, the Martial Dao Prime Body descended in the depths of Weeping Soul Ridge and stood in midair in the core region. Roar! The moment the Martial Dao Prime Body appeared, the roar of a ferocious beast sounded from the nearby forest. Many birds soared into the air and cried out warningly. Who's there? A holler sounded from the forest. The pitch-black ancient trees swayed and countless living beings gathered in all directions of the forest. Among those living beings, there were not only human cultivators, but also various races. Some of the living beings had human faces but gigantic bone wings behind them. Some of the living beings were dozens of feet tall with bared upper bodies and domineering auras, resembling the barbarian race of Tianhuang mainland. There were also living beings with human faces and beast bodies. They had gigantic wings on their backs and seemed to be a rare ferocious beast. Countless living beings were filled with killing intent and trampled on countless corpses. Like a black tide, they surged through the forest rapidly. Where's your territorial lord? Against the many living beings that surged over from all directions, the Martial Dao Prime Body asked with a calm expression. You think you're qualified to meet our territorial lord? The person who spoke was a variant living being. Although he had a human being, he had no facial features. The mouth he spoke from grew on his chest and his fangs were sharp. His eyes grew in the palms of his hands and he faced the direction of the Martial Dao Prime Body with a dark gaze. This variant living being's cultivation was not weak and should be a Hell General. However, according to the cultivation realms of this foreign world, this variant living being could only be considered as an elementary stage Hell General and was equivalent to a convergence perfected immortal. You want to take over Weeping Soul Ridge alone? Another Hell General questioned loudly. The martial Tao prime body frowned slightly when he saw the formation of the living beings. He had just arrived and did not want to be too ostentatious. However, from the looks of it, it was as though the other party wanted to swarm forward and tear him into pieces the moment their conversation went south. The martial Tao prime body said slowly, "I'm from the heavenly world and don't want to fight for Weeping Soul Ridge. I want to look for your territorial lord to obtain some information about this place." Heavenly world? Many living beings of Weeping Soul Ridge were clearly stunned for a moment before sneering. "Since you said that you're from the heavenly world, don't blame us for devouring you." The mouth of the variant living being drooled and sharp claws gradually extended from his fingers. "Kill." Suddenly, a roar burst forth from the crowd. The next moment, many living beings of Weeping Soul Ridge swarmed forward. The expression of the martial Tao prime body turned cold. He could not understand why the living beings of Weeping Soul Ridge were so hostile towards those of the heavenly world. However, since those living beings had a death wish, there was no need for him to hold back. The martial Tao prime body was already being patient and gave the other party a chance by attempting to explain things. "Die." Suddenly, the martial Tao prime body spoke and hollered, releasing a sound domain secret skill. In fact, he did not even activate the secret skill of myriad being sound. This was the simplest roar, and it was purely a sound domain attack released by his body, bloodline and powerful lungs. Even so, the living beings of Weeping Soul Ridge could not withstand it. Poof! 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 Outside the forest, the bodies of many living beings exploded one after another. Broken limbs flew everywhere and a blood mist spread with a torrential blood stench. The impact of the sound domain even caused the entire mountain ridge to tremble violently. Countless mountains shattered and collapsed as many gravel rolled down. Instantly, more than half of the surrounding living beings were shocked to death by the martial Tao prime body. Not only that, with a single roar from the martial Tao prime body, a massive earthquake happened in the mountains within the 500,000 kilometers of Weeping Soul Ridge. This was the power of the martial Tao prime body. Initially, the surroundings were filled with shouts and a deafening might. However, after the roar of the martial Tao prime body, the clamor of all living beings vanished instantly. There was only the loud sound of many mountains collapsing and gravel rolling down. Everywhere he looked, the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. It was a scene of the apocalypse. Around the martial Tao prime body, there were still a few living beings standing on the spot. They were scared out of their wits and their faces were filled with shock. Those living beings were all hell generals. It was not because their cultivation realms were high enough to defend against the sound domain attack of the martial Tao prime body. It was because the martial Tao prime body had the intention of keeping them alive. The martial Tao prime body did not explain and reached out to grab. The essence spirits of the living beings were captured by him and he was prepared to use the soul-searching art. Right then, the martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. In the depths of Weeping Soul Ridge, a figure was fleeing into the distance behind a dust cloud. The aura of that person was much stronger than the few hell generals he had captured. If he was not wrong, the person who escaped should be the territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge. The martial Tao prime body gave chase in a flash. The territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge did not manage to escape far when he turned back and his expression changed starkly. The purple-robed man with the silver mask had already arrived behind him. No matter how fast he was, how could he be faster than the martial Tao prime body? The territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge knew that he had no hope of escaping. A vicious glint flashed through his eyes as he spun around and reverted to his true form. He was a ferocious beast, Cheong-Chi, and he lunged towards the martial Tao prime body. Be it in Tianhuang mainland or the upper world, the Cheong-Chi ferocious beasts were living beings with powerful bloodlines. However, in front of the martial Tao prime body, this Cheong-Chi was no different from an ant. With a casual slap from the martial Tao prime body, the Cheong-Chi's brain juices splattered and its body exploded. The martial Tao prime body reached out and captured the essence spirit of the Cheong-Chi. At the same time, a cold crystal fell from the forehead of the Cheong Chi. The martial Tao prime body took it over and took a look. If he was not wrong, this crystal should be the nether crystal, the equivalent of a Tao fruit of perfected immortals in the upper world. Chapter 2640, 2640 Frost Springs Hell. 2640 Frost Springs Hell. Be it the nether crystal or the Tao fruit, they were both extremely precious treasures. Both of them contained the dermic Taos of the living beings. In the marketplaces of the upper world, countless perfected immortal experts would fight for them. Given the current cultivation realm of the martial Tao prime body, this nether crystal was of no help to him. However, it was the Tao fruit of a foreign world after all. The martial Tao prime body still intended to observe it when he was free. The martial Tao prime body put away the nether crystal in his storage bag and began to search the souls of the few essence spirits that were captured. The few essence spirits were all hell generals, and their understanding of this foreign world far surpassed the hell pawns. The martial Tao prime body closed his eyes and black chi extended from his palm, coiling around the few essence spirits as information about this foreign world surfaced in his mind. A long time later, the martial Tao prime body opened his eyes and fell into deep thought. The North Ridge that he was in, which encompassed 100,000 mountain ridges, had a vast territory that was far beyond his imagination. According to the memories of the few hell generals, the territory of the North Ridge was probably comparable to the entire heavenly world. The foreign world he was in was called the Frost Springs Hell. The hell generals did not know much about the Frost Springs Hell either. They had never left the North Ridge in their entire lives. They only knew that there were a few other territories like the North Ridge in Frost Springs Hell. On the east side of Frost Springs Hell, there was a blood-colored plain. It was said that there were no towering mountains or precipitous ridges. However, every single inch of land was dyed red with blood. Even the vegetation over there was covered in a layer of blood. In the south of Frost Springs Hell, there was a fog forest. The environment of Frost Springs Hell was dark and sinister without light. However, it was even more so in the fog forest. It was said that the fog forest was filled with traps. Any living being there, even an unassuming plant, could release a fatal killing intent. To the west of Frost Springs Hell was a dark swamp. There were very few areas of land in the dark swamp, and the living environment was extremely vile, giving birth to many strange life forms. If one were to fall into the swamp by accident, they would be gnawed by many unknown living beings in less than a few breaths, leaving only a skeleton as they sank into the depths of the swamp. Apart from the East Plains, South Forest, West Swamp and North Ridge, there was also a large area in the middle of Frost Springs Hell known as the Central Capital. The few hell generals had only heard that information from elsewhere. Up till this point of their cultivation, they had never left the North Ridge and knew more about the situation here. Under normal circumstances, given a place like the North Ridge that had a territory as large as the heavenly world, there should be an emperor expert at the very least. However, the strange thing was that in the memories of the few hell generals, the expert who ruled over the North Ridge and was known as King North Ridge was not an emperor, but a hell king. Cultivation resources were extremely scarce in the North Ridge. Beneath each mountain ridge were nether meridians where nether stones could be mined for the living beings here to cultivate. Therefore, in the North Ridge, there would often be battles between factions or experts to fight for the nether meridians and resources. Even for a mountain ridge like Weeping Soul Ridge where there were few nether meridians, countless factions would fight for them. The mountain ridges that were filled with corpses and bones that the martial Tao prime body saw earlier were the many living beings that had died in the North Ridge over the years. It was no exaggeration to say that the environment of the North Ridge and even the entire Frost Springs Hell was even more cruel and bloody than the fiend domain of the heavenly world. In the fiend domain, although there were also many factions and they were mutually wary of one another, there were also some rules. However, there were no rules in Frost Springs Hell and the North Ridge. Even a single nether stone could lead to a massacre. There was only endless killing and bloodshed here. There was only a single rule of nature here, survival of the fittest. When the Martial Dao Prime Body saw that information, he understood why Commander Chui and the living beings of Weeping Soul Ridge attacked him without any reservations. That was because in the minds of the living beings in Frost Springs Hell, there was only killing and fighting. Of course, the reason why the living beings of Weeping Soul Ridge were so hostile to him was because he was from the heavenly world. However, in the memories of the Hell Generals, the Martial Dao Prime Body could not find any information about the heavenly world. More than that, he did not know how he should return to the heavenly world. Right then, the sound of killing could be heard from the horizon not far away. The war drum sounded and it was as though a massive army was charging over from the darkness. The Martial Dao Prime Body jolted awake from his thoughts and looked over, frowning slightly. Indeed, there was a massive army formed by countless living beings charging over in a dense and black mass. Their leader was clad in black armor and helmet, wielding a pitch-black spear. Beneath him rode a hellhound with 3 heads. It opened its mouth that was filled with sharp fangs and its 6 eyes shone with a dark glint. Its teeth were stained with blood and flesh. This was also a Hell General. However, the aura released by this Hell General far surpassed the few people who died in Su Zimo's hands and was even above the territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge. If he was not wrong, this Hell General's cultivation realm should be at the level of a peak perfected immortal in the heavenly world. The Martial Dao Prime Body focused his gaze and saw everything clearly. There was a strange rune on the Hell General's glabella. The Martial Dao Prime Body had seen such strange runes somewhere before. Back then, after the Green Lotus True Body derived the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra, the Martial Dao Prime Body read it once. However, he could not identify the strange runes either. The rune on the Hell General's glabella was similar to the runes in the Yin Yang Talisman Sutra. They should be the same type of words. Immediately after, there was a beautiful woman with fair skin riding on a black divine steed. She had a beautiful figure and was half a body behind the Hell General. Apart from the man and woman, there were hundreds of other Hell Generals behind them. There were even more Hell Pawns that charged from all over the mountains and plains with hostility. The Martial Dao Prime Body had no intention of dodging. From the looks of it, they were not here for him. Furthermore, given his status, even if he was in a foreign world, there was no reason for him to avoid a massive army. The Hell General in the lead rode on the 3-headed Hellhound. He frowned as he looked at the ruins around him. A shocked expression appeared on the face of the beautiful woman behind him. Who did this? How did Weeping Soul Ridge that spanned 500,000 kilometers turn into such a state? Her gaze shifted and she caught sight of the purple-robed man with the silver mask not far away. Why does this person exude the aura of a living being? The beautiful woman frowned slightly. That aura was out of place with the surroundings and was extremely obvious. However, before long, she caught sight of the ferocious beast, Cheong-Chi, whose body was mostly shattered, lying in a pool of blood beneath the purple-robed man's feet. The territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge was already dead. Furthermore, it seemed like he had only just died. Chapter 2641, 2641 Single Punch. 2641 Single Punch. The black-armored man rode on the 3-headed Hellhound and arrived before the Martial Dao Prime Body slowly. He only stopped when he was less than an arm's length away. His actions were extremely offensive. The 6 eyes of the Hellhound glared at the Martial Dao Prime Body with a ferocious glint. Its opened mouth was right in front of the latter and was within reach. As long as its master gave the order, it was certain that it could tear the purple-robed man before it into pieces. The aura released by the purple-robed man made it feel extremely disgusted. There was no fear in the eyes of the Martial Dao Prime Body as his expression turned cold. Why aren't you bowing when you see me? The black-armored man looked down at the Martial Dao Prime Body and asked coldly. Scram. The Martial Dao Prime Body did not waste his breath on him and merely spat out a single word coldly. The black-armored man was stunned for a moment, as though he had not expected the Martial Dao Prime Body to dare to speak to him like that. The expressions of the dense army of hell pawns behind him changed when they heard that word. You must be tired of living. Hundreds of hell generals released killing intents that locked onto Su Zimo instantly, ready to attack at any moment. The hellhound barked wildly at the martial Dao prime body as well. If not for the black-armored man's control, it would have lunged forward. The beautiful woman looked at the martial Dao prime body and shook her head gently, reminding out of goodwill, this is Nether General North Black. Why aren't you coming over to greet him? Nether General? The martial Dao prime body frowned slightly. When he used the soul-searching art earlier, the memories only revealed hell pawns and hell generals. If so, what were Nether Generals? When the beautiful woman saw that the martial Dao prime body was still standing on the spot with a hint of confusion in his calm gaze, she could not help but say, don't tell me you haven't even heard of Nether General North Black? No. The martial Dao prime body said. His spirit consciousness had long detected that the so-called Nether General North Black before him was only at the cultivation realm of a hell general. It was just that their titles were different. Foo-foo. Nether General North Black sneered but was not enraged. He asked, you were the one who killed the territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge? Yes. The martial Dao prime body said. You flattened the entire Weeping Soul Ridge single-handedly? The beautiful woman asked in disbelief. They had just arrived and could clearly see that Weeping Soul Ridge within a radius of 1,000,000 kilometers had already turned into ruins, as though a gigantic earthquake had happened. Don't be nervous. Nether General North Black smiled gently. I don't care about the territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge, you can take over his role. However, all the spoils of war of Weeping Soul Ridge have to be handed over to me. Pausing for a moment, he said coldly, let me remind you not to negotiate any conditions with me. I've already spared your life earlier on. Lord North Black, are we going to let him off just like that? He did not take the initiative to come up and greet you. Earlier on, he even spoke rudely and offended you. It's too easy on him to spare his life. The hundreds of hell generals behind Nether General North Black cried out one after another with no intention of letting the martial Dao prime body off. What are you waiting for? Agree. The beautiful woman reminded at the side. Suddenly, the martial Dao prime body laughed. To be fair, he did not take the spoils of war of the so-called Weeping Soul Ridge seriously at all and would not even mind if Nether General North Black took them away. However, he was extremely disgusted by this person's words and actions. Even in the heavenly world, it has been many years since anyone had dared to threaten him. Right. As though he was afraid that the martial Dao prime body would not understand, Nether General North Black pointed at the territorial lord of Weeping Soul Ridge's corpse. This beast's nether crystal has already been dug away and should be on you. Remember to hand over this nether crystal as well. Don't keep it for yourself. The martial Dao prime body said indifferently, let me also remind you out of goodwill. Hurry and scram. Roar. Before Nether General North Black could attack, the three-headed hell hound he was riding on could no longer hold it in. It let out a furious roar and lunged towards the martial Dao prime body. Noisy. The martial Dao prime body flipped his palm and slapped down. The palm covered the skies like a gigantic stone mill and smashed down, smashing the three heads of the hellhound. A pool of blood sludge flowed out slowly. The cultivation of this hellhound was not weak either. In Frost Springs Hell, it was a high-level hell general and had followed Nether General North Black for many years. However, for the martial Dao prime body, it was as simple as crushing an ant. You must have a death wish. Nether General North Black was enraged and said word by word. The martial Dao prime body flicked his finger gently and a sword chi burst forth at an extremely fast speed, entering the glabella of Nether General North Black instantly. Be it hell or Nether Generals, they were equivalent to perfected immortals in the heavenly world. The difference between the two of them was way too great. Nether General North Black could not even defend against a simplest casual sword chi from the martial Dao prime body. However, When the sword chi of the martial Tao prime body touched the glabella of Nether General North Black, the strange rune imprinted on his glabella suddenly released a dark and cold power. That power seemed like it wanted to defend against the sharpness of the sword chi. However, the difference in strength between them was like heaven and earth. The sword chi did not stop at all and entered Nether General North Black's consciousness instantly, penetrating his essence spirit. Nether General North Black died on the spot. This time round, the martial Tao prime body did not even retain his essence spirit to use the soul-searching art. Everything had happened too quickly. From the moment the three-headed hellhound was slapped to death by the martial Tao prime body to the death of Nether General North Black, less than a breath had passed. By the time the hundreds of hell generals reacted, the man and hound were already dead on the spot. Ah! The hell generals were shocked. They had not expected that Nether General North Black would be killed by a single sword chi. Less than that, they had not expected that this mysterious purple-robed man who concealed himself thoroughly would dare to attack Nether General North Black. Was he not afraid of the vengeance of the ancient Nether race? Kill him. The hundreds of hell generals reacted quickly and roared. Each of them summoned their divine weapons, dermic treasures, and released a ferocious attack towards the martial Tao prime body. The martial Tao prime body could see everything clearly. In this Frost Springs hell, the methods released by the hell generals were not much different from the divine powers and secret skills of the upper world. However, there was an additional cold power in those divine powers and secret skills. The martial Tao prime body was expressionless as he punched. Boom! With that punch, divine weapons, spirit treasures, divine powers and secret skills dissipated instantly into nothingness. Even the hundreds of hell generals on the other end were turned into blood mists by that single punch from the martial Tao prime body. The group of hell generals were destroyed by a single punch from the martial Tao prime body, and their essence spirits were destroyed. The densely packed hell pawns that filled the mountains and plains had just charged forward when they saw that. Their faces turned pale and they were scared out of their wits. It was already too late for those hell pawns to want to escape. Suddenly, a ball of black flames extended from the body of the martial Tao prime body. The eternal divine emperor. Chapter 2642, 2642 North Ridge Princess. 2642 North Ridge Princess. The martial Tao prime body did not release the full power of the hellfire at all. Given his current cultivation, even a supreme immortal king might not be able to defend against it if he channeled hellfire. Even a fraction of its strength was more than enough against the group of hell pawns before him. The black flames spread rapidly like a prairie fire and engulfed many hell pawns before long. The hell pawns were burned to ashes before they could even let out tragic cries. The Black Army under Nether General North Black's lead fled. They arrived quickly but were defeated even faster. No one dared to stay on the spot. The martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. As though he sensed something, he glanced sideways at the void in the distance before retracting his gaze. He did not kill them all and merely revealed sufficient strength to chase away the hell pawns before putting away the hellfire. However, almost all the hell generals who wanted to kill him earlier on died on the spot. The beautiful woman was the only one who survived. The martial Tao prime body did not have any protective feelings towards women. However, the beautiful woman had just reminded him out of goodwill, and she was the only one in the group who did not have any hostility towards him. That was the reason why the martial Tao prime body spared her life. Why you're finished. The beautiful woman looked at the scene before her with a horrified expression. She looked at the martial Tao prime body and said with a trembling voice, "You killed Nether General North Black. The experts of Corpse Mountain Ridge will definitely not let you off. Why you should hurry and escape. If you can escape from the North Ridge, you might have a chance of survival. Otherwise, you'll definitely die." The beautiful woman urged the martial Tao prime body. "Where is Corpse Mountain Ridge?" The martial Tao prime body was unmoved and asked instead. Right then, a woman's voice sounded from afar. Corpse Mountain Ridge is one of the 10 Great Hell Ridges of the North Ridge. The territorial lord is known as Hell King Corpse Mountain, and he has more than 100 experts at the level of Hell Kings under his lead. Right then, a crack appeared in the void not far away and 3 people walked out slowly. The person who spoke was a young girl. She wore a black robe that wrapped around her voluptuous and alluring figure. Her skin was fair as snow and she looked even prettier than the beautiful woman. Furthermore, there was a graceful aura around the black-robed girl, as though she came from an extraordinary background. Beside the black-robed girl stood a black-robed man. His face was pale and he had handsome features. Raising his head slightly, there was a hint of pride in his eyes. The man and woman looked compatible standing together. However, it was clear that the method of tearing through the void earlier on was not something the two of them could use. The man and woman were both Hell Generals and could not do that. Behind the black-robed girl was an expressionless middle-aged man with a powerful aura. He was already at the Grotto Heaven realm. According to the difference in cultivation realm in Frost Springs Hell, the middle-aged man should be a Hell King. However, the middle-aged man stood behind the black-robed girl, so in terms of status, he should be lower. In reality, the moment the Martial Dao Prime Body released the Hellfire, he sensed a ripple in the void over there. As the Martial Dao Prime Body observed the 2 men and a woman, he thought to himself, the number of Hell Kings in Corpse Mountain Ridge alone probably surpasses Heaven and Earth Academy. However, Corpse Mountain Ridge is only one of the 10 Great Hell Ridges of the North Ridge. It's clear how strong the North Ridge is. The strange thing is that despite the vast territory and deep foundation of the North Ridge, King North Ridge is only an expert of the Hell King realm. Is there no Emperor in the North Ridge, or is there some other reason why Emperor experts are dormant? As the Martial Dao Prime Body pondered, the 2 men and a woman in midair sized him up as well. To be precise, the black-robed girl was the only one who paid special attention to the Martial Dao Prime Body with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. As for the black-robed man beside her and the middle-aged man behind her, they merely glanced at the Martial Dao Prime Body casually and did not take it to heart. You might still be able to survive in the North Ridge even after killing Nether General North Black. The black-robed girl smiled gently and said confidently, I can protect you in the North Ridge. Oh. The Martial Dao Prime Body did not say anything and was merely surprised. The beautiful woman who survived looked at the black-robed girl and sneered, what do you have to protect him with? Do you have the strength? The black-robed girl's cultivation realm was not much different from hers. Even if the middle-aged man behind the black-robed girl was a Hell King, he could not go against the powerful foundation of Hell King Corpse Mountain. I have my name. The black-robed girl laughed and waved her hand at the Martial Dao Prime Body. Let's get to know one another. My name is Tang Qinger. Tang Qinger. The beautiful woman murmured softly and looked at the badge on the black-robed girl's waist. Her expression changed starkly as she exclaimed, why, you're the little princess of King North Ridge. That's right. Tang Qinger nodded. In the North Ridge, King North Ridge was probably the only one who could protect anyone hunted down by Corpse Mountain Ridge. Greetings, princess. When the beautiful woman realized that it was Tang Qinger, she knelt down hurriedly and bowed, not daring to delay. You can leave first. This is none of your business. Tang Qinger waved at the beautiful woman gently and the latter fled hurriedly, as though she had been pardoned. She then descended from midair and walked towards the Martial Dao Prime Body. Although there were no rules or etiquette in this Frost Springs Hell and it was filled with bloodshed everywhere, Tang Qinger was at least friendly to him. The Martial Dao Prime Body could not sense hostility from Tang Qinger either. Watch out. The black-robed man frowned slightly and followed hurriedly, reminding. I'm fine. Tang Qinger smiled. I have you, Uncle Chen. The black-robed man said proudly, don't worry, Qinger. Even without Uncle Chen making a move, I can kill him if anything happens. As he said that, the black-robed man gestured fiercely in the direction of the Martial Dao Prime Body, implying something. Thank you. Tang Qinger smiled. It was clear that the black-robed man was interested in Tang Qinger. At the same time, she was not resistant towards him either. In the blink of an eye, the three of them arrived before the martial Dao prime body. Tang Qing'er asked, "Have you considered it? As long as you're willing to join me, Father can protect you and even step in to resolve this matter for you." Qing'er. Uncle Chen frowned slightly and reminded softly. The black-robed man added hurriedly, "Qing'er, this person's background is unknown and he exudes the aura of a living being. We should be careful." "Why are you helping me?" the martial Dao prime body asked with a calm expression. Tang Qing'er said, "I just saw that your methods are not weak and you should have already touched the threshold of a Hell King. It'll be a pity if you're killed by Corpse Mountain Ridge." That was naturally just an excuse. Tang Qing'er and the other two traveled through space and were prepared to return to North Ridge City. They only stopped when they saw what happened on the way and descended here under Tang Qing'er's insistence. Tang Qing'er continued, "My father has been a Hell King for many years. In this aspect, a few words from him will benefit you more than tens of thousands of years of your own cultivation." Chapter 2643, 2643 North Ridge Birthday Banquet. 2643 North Ridge Birthday Banquet. Right from the beginning, the martial Dao prime body had not used his full strength, let alone release the aura and methods of a grotto heaven. Therefore, in the eyes of Tang Qing'er and the other two, the cultivation realm of the martial Dao prime body was only at the threshold of a Hell King. King North Ridge. The martial Dao prime body murmured softly in deep thought. Right now, he did not know enough about Frost Springs Hell. King North Ridge was definitely one of the people who knew this foreign world the best. When Tang Qing'er saw that the martial Dao prime body was silent, she thought that he was still wary and smiled. "Don't worry, although Father is King North Ridge, he loves me extremely. As long as I plead with him, he'll definitely help me resolve this matter. Although the status of Nether General North Black is not low, this matter is still nothing much for Father." At the side, Uncle Chen frowned slightly and urged, "Your Highness, the king's birthday banquet is approaching. Let's hurry back and not linger here for too long." "That's right." The black-robed man glared at the martial Dao prime body before saying, "Qing'er, why waste time with this person? I want to meet your father earlier and catch a glimpse of the glory of King North Ridge." The birthday banquet of King North Ridge? The martial Dao prime body's heart skipped a beat. If it was the birthday banquet of King North Ridge, such a scene would probably be a rare grand occasion for the North Ridge. All the factions and the 10 great Hell Ridges would probably be present. Corpse Mountain Ridge alone had hundreds of Hell Kings. How many Hell Kings would be present for the birthday banquet of King North Ridge? The simplest way to understand this foreign world as soon as possible was to communicate with the top experts here. Even without the appearance of the Princess of the North Ridge, the martial Dao prime body was planning to look for the Hell King experts here to understand more about the situation. Since he was in time for the birthday banquet of King North Ridge and so many Hell Kings would be present, the martial Dao prime body could save some trouble. "Hey, masked man." When the black-robed man saw that the martial Dao prime body was silent, he sneered, "All the kings gathered at the birthday banquet of King North Ridge are big shots. You might not be able to withstand such a line-up." The martial Dao prime body was expressionless and did not even look at the black-robed man. He merely pointed at the latter and asked Tang Qing'er, "Who is that?" The black-robed man was truly noisy. The martial Dao prime body was considering whether he should kill the black-robed man. "You're not worthy of knowing my name," the black-robed man declared proudly. "All you have to know is that I'm the young master of the South Forest." There were 5 regions in Frost Springs Hell: East Plains, South Forest, West Swamp, North Ridge and the Central Capital. The so-called young master of the South Forest should mean that he's the son of the king in the Fog Forest of the South. Uncle Chen said indifferently, "The young master of the South Forest cultivated in the Central Capital with Her Highness and they've known one another for many years. Their families are compatible and the South Forest will send someone to the North Ridge for the king's birthday banquet to ask for her hand in marriage." Uncle Chen's words were actually a warning to the martial Tao prime body and remind him to watch himself and not harbor any improper thoughts. The birthday banquet of King Northridge this time round was also a double blessing. At the mention of that, Tang Qing'er looked at the young master of the South Forest beside her and smiled gently. Actually, she was still a little lost about this matter. To be precise, she merely did not dislike the young master of the South Forest. However, as her father and Uncle Chen had said, they were well matched in terms of social status. Perhaps this person was the right candidate for her. In reality, Uncle Chen was thinking too much. The martial Tao prime body had only met Tang Qing'er by chance and was not interested in her at all. However, since this young master of the South Forest was about to become Tang Qing'er's Tao companion, the martial Tao prime body could not kill him just like that. There was no need to turn this originally joyous matter into a funeral. Furthermore, the martial Tao prime body wanted to attend the birthday banquet of King Northridge. If he killed the son-in-law of King Northridge, there was no way he could attend the birthday banquet. He would have to kill his way through. The martial Tao prime body ignored the young master of the South Forest and nodded to Tang Qing'er. I can follow you guys to take a look. We can discuss whether or not I'll join the Northridge later on. All right. Tang Qing'er smiled. Stay by my side first. When the time comes, I'll show you the power and foundation of the Northridge. You can decide for yourself. May I know your name? Tang Qing'er turned to look at the martial Tao prime body. Desolate Marshal. The martial Tao prime body said indifferently. Your Highness, let's go. Uncle Chen urged once more. All right. Tang Qing'er beckoned to the martial Tao prime body. Come over to my side and be closer. Uncle Chen is prepared to tear through the void and undergo a long-distance spatial teleportation. If you're too far away and leave Uncle Chen's range, you'll be devoured by the endless void and you'll never be able to return. The martial Tao prime body nodded and did not reject. He took a step forward and came to Tang Qing'er's side. Humph. When he saw that, a dark look flashed through the eyes of the young master of the South Forest as he harumphed coldly. Uncle Chen glared at the martial Tao prime body and released the power of the Grotto Heaven realm. He tore through the void and brought Tang Qing'er, the young master of the South Forest and the martial Tao prime body into the spatial tunnel. The four of them shuttled through the spatial tunnel continuously and the martial Tao prime body had a calm expression. However, he was wearing a silver mask and no one could see his expression. When the four of them tore through the void once more and walked out of the spatial tunnel, the young master of the South Forest could not help but mock, Desolate Marshal or whatever your name is, how do you feel? Remember this feeling. This might be the only time in your life that you can make a long-distance teleportation through a spatial tunnel. Earlier on, we were still in Weeping Soul Ridge. Now, we've arrived at the center of the North Ridge. The martial Tao prime body ignored the young master of the South Forest and merely looked over. Not far ahead, there was a gigantic city that occupied a vast area. It was pitch black and filled with strange rocks. In its majestic aura was a sinister and terrifying feeling. Even the capitals of the three immortal kingdoms of the divine firmament immortal domain seemed much smaller compared to this city. Northridge City. As the birthday banquet of King Northridge approached, Northridge City became noisy and lively. The martial Tao prime body and the other three were not the only people. In other directions, there were also many factions and cultivators heading towards Northridge City. Many cultivators revealed reverence and avoided the martial Tao prime body's group of four at the sight of them walking out of the void. Go on. Tang Qing'er smiled at the martial Tao prime body and said. The martial Tao prime body followed behind Tang Qing'er and suddenly sent a voice transmission. The reason why you want to recruit me as a subordinate of King Northridge isn't because of my strength, right? King Northridge ruled over a myriad of ridges and had countless experts under his lead. Tang Qing'er clearly had other motives. However, the martial Tao prime body did not mind because he could not sense any hostility from Tang Qing'er. Even if Tang Qing'er had any ill intentions, the martial Tao prime body was fearless. Tang Qing'er remained silent for a moment before sending a voice transmission. I'm a little interested in your background. You're not someone from Frost Springs Hell, right? Chapter 2644, 2644 Nine Hells. 2644 Nine Hells. I'm from the heavenly world. The martial Tao prime body had no intention of hiding his background, and there was no need for that. Heavenly world? Tang Qing'er looked at the martial Tao prime body in disbelief and asked, Are you really from the heavenly world? Is it the heavenly world of the medium kiliacosm? The martial Tao prime body nodded slightly. How is that possible? Tang Qing'er was still in disbelief. I heard from my father that there's a powerful restriction barrier between the medium kiliacosm and the hell world. Even experts who have cultivated to the emperor realm won't be able to enter the hell world. I only entered this place by some freak coincidence as well. The martial Tao prime body did not explain further. He could not explain this clearly either. Even he was puzzled and had countless questions in his mind. What was the hell world you mentioned earlier on? The martial Tao prime body sensed that there was an extremely important piece of information hidden in Tang Qing'er's words and asked, could it be that the hell world doesn't belong to the medium kiliacosm? Under normal circumstances, the various worlds in the medium kiliacosm were separated by a boundless sea of stars. Although cultivators had low cultivation realms and it was difficult for them to cross the starry skies, generally speaking, there were no so-called restrictions within the various worlds. Even perfected immortals and immortal kings could enter other worlds, let alone emperor experts. It was unusual for such a restriction barrier to exist between the hell world and the medium kiliacosm. Of course not. Tang Qing'er said, the hell world is isolated from the medium kiliacosm and can be considered as an existence that's on par with the medium kiliacosm. It's both under the scope of the major kiliacosm. When he heard that, the martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. In the entire medium kiliacosm, there were 3,000 worlds. The heavenly world, great wilderness, dragon world, sword world, parasol tree world and so on belonged to the medium kiliacosm. However, the so-called hell world could stand side by side with the entire medium kiliacosm. The Frost Springs hell we're in is merely a hell in the hell world. Tang Qing'er continued, in the entire hell world, there are a total of 9 hells. They are the Heavy Springs Hell, Yellow Springs Hell, Frost Springs Hell, Een Springs Hell, Serene Springs Hell, Lower Springs Hell, Bitter Springs Hell, Boundless Springs Hell and the number 1 hell that's located in the middle, Torment Springs Hell. 9 hells. The martial Tao prime body was secretly alarmed. This hell world was even more mysterious and shocking than he had imagined. The north ridge of Frost Springs Hell alone was comparable to the territory of the heavenly world. What sort of a world was the entire Frost Springs Hell and even the 9 hells? Hell suppression, hell suppression. Could it be that the true intention of Great Emperor Infinite was to suppress the 9 hells? He recalled how the many living beings of hell revealed immense hatred and hostility towards him when they heard that he was from the heavenly world. That guess was not impossible. The martial Tao prime body asked, why are the people here so hostile towards the upper world? Tang Qing'er said, there are many theories. The nether chi of the hell world has dried up over the years and cultivation has become increasingly difficult. Some people say that it has something to do with the upper world. Some people also said that the former Lord of Hell was suppressed by experts of the upper world an era ago. When he heard that, the martial Tao prime body's heart skipped a beat. An era ago should have been the infinite era. In Greater Avicii, he had encountered 2 wills. Could one of them be the Lord of Hell? If so, who was the other one? Tang Qing'er continued, someone even said that in fact, we could have not lived in this dark and sinister hell world and could have had a better environment outside. It was all because of the suppression and bullying of the living beings of the upper world that we were suppressed here all year round. Pausing for a moment, Tang Qing'er smiled. I don't know the exact reason either. In any case, the living beings of hell are indeed extremely hostile towards the upper world. Don't casually reveal your identity or background. Since that's the case, why do you want to recruit me? The martial Dao Prime Body asked. He could sense that Tang Qinger's attitude towards him was different from the other living beings of hell. At the very least, she was not hostile. Tang Qinger said, I've never been to the upper world nor have I come into contact with living beings of the upper world. Who knows what the upper world is like? I'm only filled with curiosity about the worlds and living beings that I've never seen or come into contact with personally. There's no hatred. The reason why I recruited you was because I wanted to understand the upper world through you. I hope that you can tell me about it if there's a chance. At that point, Tang Qinger's eyes were filled with curiosity. The martial Dao Prime Body nodded. While the two of them were sending voice transmissions with their spirit consciousnesses, the four of them had already arrived before Northridge City. When the guards at the city gate saw the badge on Tang Qinger's waist, they revealed respectful expressions and bowed hurriedly to give way. The four of them entered the city successfully. The martial Dao Prime Body walked through the largest city in the Northridge and everything around him was novel. This was a civilization completely different from the heavenly world. Be it the architectural style, the crowds that came and went, or even every single detail of the ancient city, everything revealed the dark style of hell and its unique atmosphere. The colors of hell were rather monotonous. Almost everything in the ancient city was matched with black and red. In the sinisterness, there was a hint of blood and terror. As the birthday banquet of King Northridge approached, Northridge City looked festive as well. There were many lanterns that shone with blood hanging on both sides of the streets. In the dark ancient city, it was as though an ancient ferocious beast had widened its bloodshot eyes. Some cultivators had just hung up their lanterns when the martial Dao Prime Body swept his gaze across and narrowed his eyes slightly. Fresh blood was still dripping from beneath the lanterns, emitting a faint blood stench. The lanterns were only put out after they were soaked in fresh blood. Such a terrifying thing seemed extremely ordinary in this ancient city of the hell world. Furthermore, it was perfectly compatible with the surroundings without any awkwardness. The hierarchy in Frost Springs Hell was strict. On the streets, only Hell generals could walk boldly through the middle. The narrow spaces on both sides of the streets were passages left for the many Hell pawns to travel through. As for the skies above the ancient city, one can only pass through at will under the lead of a Hell King expert. Of course, among the four of them, because Tang Qinger had a noble status and was the daughter of King Northridge, no one stopped her from flying through the air. Isn't that the little princess of the Northridge? Not far away, a voice sounded with a hint of frivolity. The four of them turned over. Not far away, a large group of cultivators tore through the air. Their leader was dressed in jade green robes and played with two fireballs that burned with green flames. This person's cultivation realm was merely that of a Hell general. However, behind him stood a Hell King expert with a terrifying aura and eyes that seemed to be burning with green flames. This young man looked like he had a high status. Chapter 2645, 2645 Threat. 2645 Threat. So, it's the young master of Verdant Flame Ridge. When Tang Qinger saw who it was, she cupped her fists and greeted. Similar to Corpse Mountain Ridge, Verdant Flame Ridge was one of the 10 great hell ridges. The young master of Verdant Flame Ridge said with a smile, the little princess of the North Ridge usually cultivates in the central capital. It's truly rare that you're making such a long journey to return for the birthday banquet of King Northridge. Tang Qinger said, I naturally can't miss father's 800,000-year-old birthday. Of course. The eyes of the young master of Verdant Flame Ridge curved sharper. The true pity will be if you miss King Northridge's birthday banquet this time round. Young master. The Hell King expert of Verdant Flame Ridge said softly, it's time for us to leave. Understood. The young master of Verdant Flame Ridge laughed and led the large group of people to brush past Tang Qinger and the others. The martial Dao Prime Body felt something strange. Logically speaking, Verdant Flame Ridge was only one of the 10 Great Hell Ridges and was under the rule of King North Ridge. However, he did not seem to have much respect for Tang Qinger in North Ridge City, which was right under the nose of King North Ridge. That's him. Right then, a shout sounded not far away. The person in the purple robe and silver mask, that's him. The Martial Dao Prime Body and the others looked over. Another large group of cultivators walked towards them with an aggressive aura. They were hostile. The group of them exuded a strong aura of death and their skin had green tinges. Enemies are bound to meet. Tang Qinger frowned slightly and sighed. They're from Corpse Mountain Ridge? The Martial Dao Prime Body asked. Tang Qinger nodded. To think that we would meet here in advance. But don't worry, they won't do anything to you with me around. The reason why Tang Qinger was so protective of the Martial Dao Prime Body was because she was curious about the upper world. She wanted to obtain some information about the upper world from the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, the young master of the South Forest felt another feeling when he saw that. He was displeased and his gaze darkened. So, it's the young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge. Tang Qinger took the initiative to step forward, shielding the Martial Dao Prime Body behind her as she greeted the young man in the lead. The little princess of the North Ridge? The young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge frowned and waved it off. Make way, I'm looking for that purple-robed man behind you. Uncle Chen's expression darkened. He glared at the young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge and said coldly, "This is our princess of the North Ridge. Watch your tone and attitude." A Hell King behind the young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge stood out as well. Brother Chen, this has nothing to do with the North Ridge. I advise you guys not to interfere. Tang Qinger smiled gently. Everyone, I was present when everything happened. There was some misunderstanding that caused both parties to fight. Please don't pursue this matter on account of my father. Why? Are you trying to say that our Corpse Mountain Ridge's Nether General North Black shall die for nothing? The Hell King of Corpse Mountain Ridge narrowed his gaze and said aggressively, "Little princess of the North Ridge, you have to think carefully. Nether General North Black is someone from the ancient Nether race. The ancient Nether race has a noble status in Hell indeed. However, North Black was only a Nether General at the end of the day." Tang Qinger gradually retracted the smile on her face. Her tone turned cold as she asked, "My father is King North Ridge. Is his reputation inferior to a mere Nether General?" The young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge sneered. The reputation of King North Ridge, Fufu. Initially, Uncle Chen harbored some dislike towards the Martial Dao Prime Body as well. However, at that moment, it was clear from the attitudes of the young master and Hell King of Corpse Mountain Ridge that they were looking down on King North Ridge. That was something that Uncle Chen could not tolerate. Guys. Uncle Chen narrowed his eyes that shone with a cold glint and said slowly, "Let me remind you guys that this is North Ridge City, not Corpse Mountain Ridge. Be careful, trouble comes from your mouths. The birthday banquet of King North Ridge is approaching. The North Ridge doesn't mind using the corpses and fresh blood of an entire Hell Ridge to liven things up at his birthday banquet." It was a blatant threat. The expressions of the young master and Hell King of Corpse Mountain Ridge changed clearly. They looked wary. "Young master, endure it first. There's no need to be hasty," the Hell King reminded secretly. The young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge had a dark expression. After a moment of silence, he suddenly smiled. "Not bad, the North Ridge sure is impressive. Just you wait and see." With that said, the young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge beckoned and led the way with the cultivators behind him. Humph. Looking at the back view of Corpse Mountain Ridge's group, Uncle Chen harumphed coldly and said sinisterly, "After the king's birthday banquet, Corpse Mountain Ridge should be replaced." "Go on." Tang Qinger said, "Let's forget about this matter." The Martial Dao Prime Body witnessed the entire process and felt that things were not simple. Although North Ridge City seemed peaceful and joyous, there were actually undercurrents surging. Be it Verdant Flame Ridge or Corpse Mountain Ridge, their attitude towards Tang Qinger was clearly a little strange. Furthermore, the young master of Corpse Mountain Ridge seemed to be implying something. The young master of Verdant Flame Ridge seemed like he wanted to say something as well. However, he was reminded by the Hell King of Verdant Flame Ridge and left first. Seems like this birthday banquet of King North Ridge won't be peaceful. The Martial Dao Prime Body thought to himself. The young master of the South Forest at the side witnessed everything as well and was slightly puzzled. However, he did not think too much about it and followed Tang Qinger and the others into the palace of North Ridge City. Not long after they entered the palace, a group of people walked over. Their leader was tall and had a powerful aura. Every single move he made exuded the dominance of a king. Big brother. When Tang Qinger saw that person, she smiled and greeted him from afar. It was the eldest prince of King North Ridge, Tang Hao. He was the one overseeing the birthday banquet this time round and was a Hell King. Qinger, you're back. Tang Hao's gaze shifted. When he saw Tang Qinger, he smiled as well and strode over. Your Highness. Uncle Chen bowed. Tang Hao nodded slightly. He looked at Tang Qinger and smiled. You've been cultivating in the central capital and haven't seen father for many years. Father was also delighted when he heard that you've returned. Pausing for a moment, he looked at the young master of the South Forest and sized him up. This must be the young master of the South Forest, right? Greetings, Your Highness. The young master of the South Forest cupped his fists hurriedly. Tang Hao smiled and nodded. You're indeed a handsome young man with a dignified appearance. Father should be very satisfied to see you. Where's father? Let's pay him a visit. Tang Qinger asked. This is. Tang Hao's gaze shifted to the Martial Dao Prime Body and he narrowed his eyes slightly. For some unknown reason, Tang Hao could not sense the cultivation realm of the Martial Dao Prime Body. Furthermore, the Martial Dao Prime Body exuded the aura of a living person that was incompatible with the surroundings. This is a friend I met on the way back. I can take him to meet father at the same time. Tang Qinger explained briefly. Father is resting in his chamber. You guys can go on. As Tang Hao said that, he scanned the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, no matter how he checked, he could not see the depths of the Martial Dao Prime Body. Chapter 2646, 2646 Welcome to Hell. 2646 Welcome to Hell. The chamber of King North Ridge was not as quaint and bedazzling as the immortal sects and immortal kingdoms of the heavenly world. Instead, it was filled with a sinister and terrifying aura. Even the pool water that surrounded the chamber was blood-red and emitted a faint blood stench. From time to time, scarlet fish with sharp fangs would leap out of the water. The Martial Dao Prime Body was no longer surprised by everything. Under Tang Qinger's lead, the few of them arrived at the depths of the chamber before long and met the legendary King North Ridge. At that moment, King North Ridge was sitting on a chair made of white bones. It was surrounded by a blood pool and dense skulls were piled at the feet of the chair. This birthday banquet was known as the 800,000-year-old celebration of King North Ridge. Under normal circumstances, Grotto Heaven Realm experts had a lifespan of around 1,000,000 years. Now that King North Ridge was 800,000 years old, he was actually no longer at his peak. Even so, there was no sign of decline or haggardness from King North Ridge. Although his eyes were closed, King North Ridge exuded an unimaginable might as he sat on the white bone throne. This was an aura that could only be nurtured after one was in the upper echelons for a long time with countless corpses and blood trampled beneath him. The spirit consciousness of the Martial Dao Prime Body swept past King North Ridge. According to the heavenly world, this King North Ridge should be a supreme immortal king with a major grotto heaven. It seemed like the saying that cultivation was difficult in Frost Springs Hell was not groundless. The expert who ruled over the entire North Ridge and stood at the peak was only a supreme immortal king. In fact, he had not even cultivated his grotto heaven to the perfected stage. Suddenly, King North Ridge opened his eyes. Two shuddering cold beams of light seemed to burst forth from the dark chamber as a malevolent and bloodthirsty aura spread instantly. Uncle Chen did not dare to meet his gaze and bowed hurriedly. The young master of the South Forest often followed King South Forest and was long familiar with these supreme experts. However, he was still stunned by the aura of King North Ridge and his heart skipped a beat. Only the martial Dao prime body was expressionless and had a calm gaze. "Father!" Tang Qing'er shouted with a smile. King Northridge's gaze paused slightly on the martial Dao prime body before turning to Tang Qing'er. His expression softened as he revealed a smile and nodded slightly. "Qing'er, you're back." "Yes." Tang Qing'er smiled. "I rushed back with some gifts to celebrate your 800,000-year-old birthday, Father." "How thoughtful, Qing'er." King Northridge nodded. Tang Qing'er continued, "By the way, Father, I brought two friends back with me." "Greetings, King Northridge." "I'm Shintuing." The young master of the South Forest hurried forward to greet with a respectful expression. "Shintuing." King Northridge said, "Young master of the South Forest, right? How has your father been recently?" The young master of the South Forest said hurriedly, "My father's health is fine. He has you on his mind but doesn't have the chance to come and meet you." The two of them exchanged pleasantries. King Northridge was distracted, as though he knew about the matter between Tang Qing'er and the young master of the South Forest and did not make things difficult for the latter. To be precise, the attention of King Northridge was not on the young master of the South Forest at all. He was still paying attention to the martial Dao prime body. "Also, this is fellow Daoist Desolate Martial." Tang Qing'er recounted the process of them getting to know one another briefly. "Father, will it anger you that I made this decision to resolve the matter under your name?" "It's fine, the death of Nether General North Black isn't significant." King Northridge waved it off. "Even if a few Hell Kings of theirs were killed, what can Corpse Mountain Ridge say?" Pausing for a moment, he looked at the martial Dao prime body and his eyes shone with a shuddering light as a tremendous might descended slowly. As King Northridge, his judgment was naturally far superior to Tang Qing'er and the others. Although he could not tell the depths of the martial Dao prime body, he could clearly sense that the latter was definitely not at the level of a Hell General. "Are you really from the heavenly world?" King Northridge asked slowly. "Yes." Against the might of King Northridge, the martial Dao prime body had a calm expression. "Furthermore, I want to ask you how to return to the heavenly world." "How dare you?" Uncle Chen hollered, "How dare you speak to the king like that instead of bowing down?" Although the martial Dao prime body stood below, he stood upright. Ever since he entered the chamber, he had not bowed to King Northridge. The tone he used earlier on was as though he was communicating with his peers without any respect. Even Tang Qing'er was worried for the martial Dao prime body. If her father were to take offense, she would definitely not be able to protect the martial Dao prime body. Everything else aside, the fact that the martial Dao prime body came from the heavenly world was enough for her father to kill him. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, King Northridge burst into laughter. His laughter reverberated through the palace and was deafening, filled with a domineering aura. King Northridge looked at the martial Dao prime body with a sinister smile and said slowly, "Since you've arrived at the Hell world, there's no way you can return." The martial Dao prime body frowned slightly. Was he really going to be trapped in the Hell world? What did the so-called Hell world and the 9 hells have to do with Great Emperor Infinite? What was the old monk's motive for pushing him down? Was it just to trap him in the Hell world? What did the old monk have to do with the Hell world? There were too many questions lingering in his mind. King Northridge stood up slowly and said, "Young man, you're quite bold. If it was any other time, you would have been a corpse beneath my feet by now. However, you're a friend brought back by Qing'er. I'll spare you this once." "Thank you, father." Tang Qing'er heaved a sigh of relief and said hurriedly. At the same time, she looked at the martial Dao prime body and kept giving him meaningful glances, asking him to come forward and express his thanks. The martial Dao prime body ignored it. Right now, he was considering whether he should head forward and throw a punch to have a deeper interaction with King Northridge. However, he could not attack directly when he saw how protective Tang Qing'er was. Furthermore, the birthday banquet of King Northridge was approaching and there was no need to rush. It would not be too late to look for King Northridge after his birthday banquet. Also, there were so many factions and experts gathered at King Northridge's birthday banquet, he would definitely be able to obtain more information. King Northridge glanced at the martial Dao prime body indifferently. My birthday banquet is approaching and I'm in a good mood. I won't hold it against you today. However, let me remind you that this is not the heavenly world. Hell is thousands of times crueler, darker and bloodier than the heavenly world. The living environment of the heavenly world is like the peaceful pure land in the eyes of the living beings of hell. In hell, if you're not careful, even your bones will be eaten. Pausing for a moment, King Northridge grinned at the martial Dao prime body with a sinister smile. Young man, welcome to hell. At that moment, King Northridge had yet to realize what sort of impact this purple-robed cultivator with the silver mask would bring to the hell world. Less than that, he could not imagine how much of a storm this mysterious young man would cause in hell. When he heard King Northridge's words, the martial Dao prime body laughed as well. He clenched his fists and murmured softly, "Hell. Desolate Marshal has arrived." You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.